Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily, counting down the hours to the official beginning of hockey season around these parts, with Winnipeg Jets training camp officially underway on Thursday night. But the Young Stars just finished up in Penticton. We'll find out who stood out and how the trip was with Jamie Thomas. And then looking forward to chopping it up with Mike McIntyre, the Winnipeg Free Press, on all the big storylines heading into Winnipeg Jets training camp later on this week. We'll also get to a little football talk. Bombers on the bye this week, but our pal Andy McNamara, probably a very sad Andy McNamara joining us in. Of course, longtime listeners know our pal Andy is the chairman of Cleveland Browns Nation. Tough loss last night to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and even tougher loss of Nick Chubb on a gruesome knee injury last night. And we wonder why these running backs are trying to get their secured money. Perfect example of that last night. So we will talk a little NFL later on in the program, but definitely focus in on the Winnipeg Jets, as well as some information that is going to be released later on in the week at the Winnipeg Jets Fan Fest. Lots of anticipation for that, and we will be at Fan Fest. So hopefully you can come by and say hi. I know the IC boys are going to be cranking out their program live from 9 to 11. And we'll be a busy day, so hopefully we'll see you all down there on Saturday at the Hockey for All Center. Just before I bring in Michael Remis and we get after it, a big shout out to the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. Our friends at Coolbet Canada, Princess Auto, Consolidated Supply, Royal Sports and BP, Nick and Nicky DQ, F Apparel, Vita Health Fresh Market, Wallace and Wallace, Canadian Club, Manitoba Battery, Aquatech, Modern Man Barbershop, Assiniboia Downs, 2 days left of live racing, Breezy Bend, Aikens Lake, and of course our friends at Little Brown Jug, where I believe Dallas is tuning in right now after having a beautiful lunch on the patio on this gorgeous late September day. And speaking of Assiniboia Downs, let's welcome in Michael Remis, who may have dropped the hammer on me in our very tight season-long competition with that massive triactor last night. Guess who's in a good mood today?
Oh, man, I was like jumping for joy. I was getting so like depressed from my picks, but this like undoes everything.
I think that's the biggest win on a single wager all year in the
So I bet a $6 tractor box, so it's $1 bet 6 times, and I won on it. Hold on, what's the number? $150.70 on a $1 bet. Basically, it was a $6 bet, and I hit the 941 tractor and a Cozzana, which I have won on before, just oppose and double barrel elite. And I actually think that was the program selections too. What? On that particular race. So all you got to do is just follow the program.
We'll fire out a couple more later on, but yeah, just 2 days left to get out to the track, and my God, what a beautiful day to do that. I think we're looking at about a high of 28 degrees right now, unseasonably warm, and we will take it. Have to admit, Remis, nice to have this beautiful weather as everybody gets to town for Winnipeg Jet training camp, especially the new guys that haven't been around here. They probably heard all these horror stories about our weather. Most of it all true. But at least they get a little taste of how nice it can be around here when it's not subarctic in the winter, although we know that's coming, along with 82 games of NHL action beginning on the 11th of October.
Yeah, I played hockey last night, and I got out of the arena like close to 10. It was still so hot outside. I was like, what month is this right now? And I'm looking at the weather, 25 degrees, and the weekend looking great as well, all over 20. Enjoy it, Huss. This is awesome. It's not quite summer's still here. It's not quite fall yet.
Shout out to everybody in chat. I see Coachy, happy 2 for Tuesday, Huss. Wouldn't be surprised if I'm making a trip by Sal's at some point today. That is often part of my routine on Tuesday. I will definitely admit to that. And here's one from Lynn Reimer. Said, can we shout out Corrine Schroeder from small town Manitoba for being selected by New York in the PWHL draft yesterday. You know, we were on the air when this was happening, Reem, just before we get to the Jets. And we were talking about Jocelyn Larocque, who, of course, from St. Anne, who went second overall in the draft. And just so people know, before the draft happened, every team was able to sign 3 players. So many of the top players from both the U.S. and Canadian women's national team were signed. But Jocelyn was the second player drafted. I believe she went to the Toronto squad. But I saw some of the coverage later on, and I know we were giving TSN a hard time about the TSN Plus and the Manning broadcast. This league will work if it is properly supported, I think, by media in Canada. It's very hard to, build an upstart league or a new endeavor, without, I don't want to say necessarily promotion, excuse me, but the opportunity for people to learn about it, to follow it. And obviously, I think both of the national companies have made a point of doing what they can to support women's sports, especially TSN. But awesome panel yesterday with all 4 women breaking down all the picks. Billie Jean King was there announcing many of them. And I have to say, as someone that has worked in women's hockey before, we obviously had one of the great women's hockey events of all time here in Winnipeg in 2007 with the World Women's Championships. It was great to see. This looks big league right now. And I mean, they've been button heads for so long with those 2 rival leagues. And I know there were some people that lost jobs and there's less opportunities for players right now. But this original 6 of the PWHL, I think, is really intriguing. I think it should be exciting for hockey fans. And I thought they did a heck of a job, as well as the folks and particularly the women at TSN, for promoting the the birth of the league the way they did yesterday with the first ever draft.
Yeah, it looked like a great event there held at the CBC headquarters. Saw a ton of coverage online, and we talked about Jocelyn Larocque going second overall, and Lynn's giving a shout out to Corinne Schroeder. Elm Creek, Manitoba, went to Balmoral Hall, played for Boston University and Quinnipiac. That's awesome. So some local content there, and I'm sure we'll be following this league. I mean, you look at the WNBA, Huss. I think it's the interest has been going steadily up. There's no reason why, there shouldn't be a women's hockey league with what we've seen with the rivalry with Canada and US, and the 2 leagues. I mean, we're just seeing it with spring football today with the XFL and USFL merging. That's a different story, but with the 2 leagues, the women, now there's one, and wishing them all the best. I hope this works, and I'm looking forward to following it.
Yeah, no doubt about that. The chat's hilarious already right now. Hot Linda has popped in. This Remo kid knows
the horse.
Stuff.
That's
good
the horse,
friends
for the record.
With double-barreled elite. And of course, our buddy T. Konopali Huss can't wait for Villy and Bauer training camp scrap.
Yeah, you wrote that in a comment.
If we're doing that in the Coolbet lines, that would be Bauer minus 100,000. Something tells me that I don't think our boy Villy's path to playing in the National Hockey League involves dropping the gloves with bruisers like Bauer. But I'm looking forward to it. And Remo, I'm looking forward to talking to Jamie Thomas about what happened in Penticton, who sort of stood out to him, and the guys that, sort of built through the event and are prepared for, in many cases, their first NHL training camp with the vets beginning on Thursday. But as I teased right in the opening, the Jets have teased some information that we're going to find out on Saturday, including what we understand is a new jersey to be worn at times this season, essentially a 3rd jersey for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, we got a notification from True North, an email saying media are invited to attend a special jersey unveiling take place at FanFest Hockey for All Center Saturday. So we could do some interviews after, get some footage. So a Winnipeg Jets jersey at FanFest, a special 23-24 jersey. I've seen people speculating online that they're going to announce that they're moving to the Heritage. That's not what this says here. It just says one special jersey will be unveiled at 11:45 on Saturday. We're hoping to be broadcasting. We're going to be getting set up there. So we actually won't be, maybe we'll have peripheral view, but won't be right up in there for the unveiling, but we'll be there.
And hey, guess what? Ezzy Ginsberg, the OG himself, has popped in. Shana Tova, Winnipeg Sports Talk. Right back at you, Ez. And as I mentioned off the top, we're going to be at FanFest, and so will IC. They're going to be doing their show live 9 to 11. I think we're going to be hanging out with the fellas in basically the same spot. So make your plans to come out to FanFest. Pop by and see the IC boys. Pop by and see us at Winnipeg Sports Talk. And then just before noon, take in this unveiling of this new jersey for the upcoming year. Now, I think what you mentioned, Remo, I mean, a lot of talk about the heritage jerseys. And I mean, it has been interesting to see how much the players, the veterans, have been wearing the red pants.
Yes.
Which, of course, go with that. And I think that sparked some interest. I would imagine, I think these are two very different things. The jersey that's going to be unveiled is, from what I understand, a new jersey that we have not seen yet in the National Hockey League. We'll get details on when that jersey is going to be worn, and all of that. The other side of the question is, what will the regular nights be? And I'm here for the speculation that we will see more of the heritage jersey this year. Whether that becomes, and I'm not saying it will be, I mean, I know it has been speculated just from, a lot of people talking about, well, first of all, the popularity of those jerseys and how sweet they are, but also the fact that we've seen the players, using those red pants a lot more in the lead up to it. Potentially more of a mix, or maybe more nights of the heritage jersey. But there'll be a lot of intrigue as to what these new duds look like on Saturday, as well as if we get information on just how the jerseys will be worn this year, when the team will be wearing what, and whether we'll get a little bit more of those beautiful heritage duds for the Winnipeg Jets this year at home.
Yeah, there's nothing more than I love to do on the show than rate jerseys, and I've seen a couple other teams announce specialty jerseys. The Bruins doing their Centennial jersey, almost like the Happy Gilmore style from the early 90s, but not quite. So we'll be getting here. Although my grading on past Jets jerseys, I gave, when they was unveiled, I gave the Aviator one, was not a fan, but now I'm wanting them to bring it back. Maybe with a different logo, but I do like the color scheme of that one. And the first reverse retro, I think looked better as a uniform than just a regular jersey.
Yeah. You know what? I really, so the first reverse retro was the sort of silvery gray one? Is that,
yes.
That's the one we're talking? Yeah. Those are really, really sharp when you see them, up front. And I thought they looked great on the team as well. But we'll have to wait until Saturday. But another reason to come down to FanFest and join in for what should be a great day. And while you're at it, you can come and talk to us and get a little info if you haven't already and jumped on that WST 4-game pack. We can set you up with some folks to get that done if you want to join us. And by the way, shout out to the Gitch, who I did pop into or run into last night towards the end of the Monday Nighter. Chalk up another WST favorite joining us for 4 games this year at Canada Life Center. So shout out to Gitch. If you want more information on the pack, go to winnipegsportstalk.com, click that link, or there is a link in the description, and that's going to be a great deal. We're going to do a little party before every game with a little early entry. Every ticket comes with a beer, drink, soda, or pop for each of the 4 games. We'll do some WST raffles beforehand as well. So been unbelievable response so far. So if you are thinking about, a smaller package, do it with us. Section 316, 317. That corner is going to be rocking for those 4 games against LA, Edmonton, the Leafs, and Calgary. And, of course, our first date will be welcoming back Pierre-Luc Dubois on the 17th of October. Remo, we are, of course, we mentioned FanFest and the jerseys that we're going to get this weekend. But come Thursday, it's on right now. And, we're going to talk to Jamie shortly about what he saw in training camp. But, I mean, to me, and maybe this camp is a little bit different because of the offseason changes, the Dubois trade, the new guys coming in from LA. I know people are already firing out lines from the coaches' skates or whatever you want to call it before training camp officially starts. So, I mean, I think that is going to be right at the top of the list where things get going when Rick Bowness is out there running the show. But the other part of me, and maybe the first week is always the most interesting, is how these young men that just performed at the Young Stars tournament do when they get to main camp with NHL vets and regulars. And the likes of Colby Barlow we're going to see for the first time. Chaz and Lambert will be back. I'll tell you what, maybe coming out of this event, the guy that I'm most excited to see, how he handles and is definitely going to be in the mix is this Chibrikov. And we'll be talking to Jamie about him in a few minutes when he joins us on the show.
Yeah, Chibrikov with an assist in yesterday's game and a goal as well. And, as you kind of ripped on me at the end of the show because the Jets released their training camp rosters for Team Newmanen and Team Solani, and you try to read between the lines there. As Ken Wee would say, you can kind of figure out what the NHL lines are going to come out with. And you mocked me for that. You said it was clickbait. Well, that's wrong.
By the way,
first of all, it is.
Everyone wants to talk gave about. You the greatest nickname that is going to stick. Yeah. Click Bonus.
Well,
AKA
anyways,
Michael Remis, the CTO.
Anyways, Mike McIntyre, the Big J journalist who's coming on our show later on, he tweeted out his projected lines, which were basically the same as mine. So here's what Mike tweeted out. Now it's a real news. Mike tweeted it out. When I do it, it's speculation because I'm not a journalist. I'm just here. And here's the lines that we're talking about for training camp. If you look at the way they did the groups for Newman and Solani, you got Connor, Shafley, Velarde, and getting the first crack at second line center. The question that turned Ken into a pickle. Niederreiter, Perfetti, Ehlers. And shout out to Ken. I read his newest at the Winnipeg Free Press. Now, good to see him. Looked like a kid on his first day of school with the backpack there, Ken. I follow Lowry, Appleton, Barron, Kupari, Nemesnikov. And then he's got, this is what Mike has, Veal, Gustafson, Reichel, AJF, Toninato, Harkins, Torgerson, Lucius, Barlow, Chibrikov, Lambert, Malott. And Julian writes in chat, Murat also had projected lines. So I don't know why you think it's so bad to have projected lines for day one of camp, Huss.
I think we went through this yesterday. I think guessing lines based on just on training camp beforehand that can change in a moment is a... Listen, people like it. I mean, I will defer to you. It got a lot of talk. We're talking about this right now. People in the chat are already debating speculative training camp lines. Let's just remember what we're talking about here, folks.
What do you think we're supposed to do? What do you think we're supposed to do between now until Thursday? We actually have info that we even talk about who is the second line center. Now we can see it's Cole Perfetti. Day one, it's going to be Perfetti. So he gets the first crack. Can he stay healthy?
How do we know this?
Because we
don't.
What do you mean? Look at the rosters. What do you think? Lowry? Fine. Maybe it's Lowry, Niederreiter, Ehlers. Maybe they move the captain up to line 2. There's 2 centers in the group, Perfetti and Lowry.
I can't wait till Rasmus Kupari is the second line center in the first game and everyone loses their minds.
I want to see what Rasmus can do.
I will say this. You know what? This is a fun exercise and we can throw this around, but we'll be productive use of our time. We'll be finding out about the young men that wore Jets jerseys in Penticton at the Young Stars tournament, and we're going to do that with Jamie Thomas coming up in just a second. Before we bring on JT, do want to thank our friends and the wonderful sponsors over at Modern Man Barber Shops. Guys, you need to clean it up heading into training camp or the rest of September. Get on down to Modern Man Barber Shop. There's one conveniently located near you because there's 8 locations now in the city of Winnipeg, including the newest ones on Pembina Highway or Plessy Road. Modern Man has you covered, guys, with a variety of grooming services, including haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. You can book your look via modernmanbarber.com and make an appointment. And give them a follow on Instagram as well, over at Modern Man Barber Shops. Man, we're getting a little bit of extra pool weather, so all of you with those Aquatech pools, Crank it out. I see Bridget is out at Beach Day today, out at Grand Beach. Who would have thought that 2 days before training camp begins? But of course, Aquatech are not only leaders in in-ground and above-ground pools, but also home renovations with thousands of renos as their foundation. Right now, if you're ready to enhance your kitchen, bathroom, or even add a man cave to your home, talk to our friends at Aquatech. Visit aqua-tech.ca to learn more about their whole home renovations, including financing options. And heck, I mean, this does feel like summer right now. I'd say, get over to Manitoba Battery and make sure we've got batteries for the boat. Head out to the river tonight or something like that. Of course, no matter what you need batteries for, Manitoba Battery is the #1 source for batteries in Winnipeg with the best prices in town, beating the pants off the big box stores, and the best service in town because Donnie and the gang will deliver those batteries to you for free anywhere in the city of Winnipeg with any purchase over $60. It is that easy. Whatever your battery needs are, shop local, do it at Manitoba Battery. You can order online at manitobabattery.com. Give them a phone call as well. Or if you are in the neighborhood, pop by and see Donnie and his great staff, 1026 Logan Avenue for our friends at Manitoba Battery. Just before we bring in JT, Canada's favorite whiskey, Canadian Club, is also the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and WST. No Bomber game this week, but there'll be some CC keeping fans warm in that big Grey Cup rematch coming up a week Friday. And don't forget, CC and Ginger premix cocktails available in cans right now, both at Manitoba Liquor Marts, but also at your local beer store. All right, Mike McIntyre's coming up in a little bit, but our boy Jamie Thomas, the commissioner, is back from Penticton, probably getting him in the middle of working the waiver wire right now, heading into week 3 of the fantasy season. What's up, Jamie? How was the trip?
It's like I've got like 3 windows open on top, 3 or 4 tabs. I'm looking at the 7 fantasy football pools that I'm in.
I know you well.
Thank you. It's like we've been together for a long time. You get me. That's the one thing we're going to get to. Apologies. My dog's going nuts. The FedEx is here dropping off another package for my wife. So
it was all good. The dogs are always welcome. If you want to rustle them over here,
Tony,
we'll be able to go and take care of the FedEx guy. Good security at the Thomas household.
He listens one time. Anyways, Penticton was fantastic.
Yeah. Tell us about the. I mean, some of these young players had been in this event before. There were plenty of new ones. Before we get to actually on the ice, just tell us about. I'd imagine there is some semblance of team building, sort of like a mini training camp for these young players who, in a lot of ways are beginning their Jets journey together with many of their age group contemporaries, regardless of what the plan is or where they'll be playing later on this season.
One of the things that kind of was beneficial for this group this year was development camp. And I spoke with Dominic DiVincentis on the first day of when we got to Penticton, and he said that was a big difference as compared to last year, to allow the guys to bond together. Penticton kind of happens really fast. And if there's any time for them to bond, it's the trip there. So we have to fly to Calgary, fly to Kelowna, then bus from Kelowna to Penticton. So of the 4 teams, the Jets get the shaft the most. But it's not even close. So it's a long travel day the first day. So I think they get to spend a lot of time together that aspect. And then they're right into a game on Friday against the Edmonton Oilers. But it was good. Saturday they practiced, they got to hang out together. They hung out together immediately after the game on Sunday. And I said this earlier today, like the game times are not ideal. They play at 4:00 on Friday in the afternoon. Saturday they had off. Sunday they play at 2 p.m. And then on Monday morning, they play at 10 a.m. So there wasn't a whole lot of you could understand why they looked a little fatigued in the third period of that game against the Calgary Flames yesterday morning/afternoon. But I think there's enough there. And on the way back, we stopped in Kelowna, had a big team dinner at Earl's. So it was fantastic. They also went for a team dinner on Saturday night, I believe, at a place called Salty's, a seafood restaurant right on Lake Okanagan. It's a beautiful scenery, of course, to look at while you're having dinner. So there's lots of time for the guys to get together. And I will say this, they hung out a lot. Clearly I think that's just the best time for them. It's going to get crazy now as camp gets here, and speaking with numerous members of the prospects, they're really excited about getting to main camp just to see how they're going to fit in and how they're going to acclimate to that and that speed and the physicality, I guess, is another way of looking at it.
Hey, speaking of hanging out, before we get to the games and the players, you got to hang out with our old pal Dennis Bayak. What was how was Dennis doing? We're gonna have to get him back on the show in the next little bit, but
yeah, for sure.
How was he doing? What was it like catching up with a Jets broadcasting legend?
Yeah, listen, Cam Penny, our social media guru, threw up a photo of Dennis on X/Twitter, and I think it got 2,000 likes. Like I mean, the guy can do no wrong. Put a statue up already, but that's where he sits. He's the mayor, all that stuff like that. But it was great to catch up with him. He was in Europe for the majority. Like, Dennis lives in Kelowna, and clearly a lot of the fires were there. So we spent a good part of the interview talking about the work that was done by the firefighters over that tumultuous time in the Okanagan too.
Was his place okay?
Yeah, his place. I think it was like a kilometer. He said it was away. A lot of smoke.
Well, I mean, I had heard. I mean, I think Rick was checking in with Dennis, and he was actually in Germany at the time of the fires.
Yeah,
the area was evacuated. Yes. I can't imagine the helpless feeling. You're halfway across the world on another continent, getting this information that your neighborhood has been evacuated. You don't know whether you're coming back to a house or not.
Yeah, 100%. And, he was worried. And I guess when he came back, it was the best time. And on top of this, when we flew to when we got to Penticton, or before we got there, when we got to Kelowna, the road had just opened up because there was a rock avalanche 2 that had blocked one lane of traffic going into Penticton from Kelowna. So that was down to one lane. It had just opened 2 days before we arrived, or else the Jets were going to have to take a long road, the other on Highway 33, I believe, which would add another hour and a half to their travel time. But going back to Dennis, so it was great to catch up with him. He's happy. He's got one more World Juniors, I believe, in Sweden on his mantle. And then that's it. Like, I mean, it's crazy to think that Dennis Bayak won't be calling games any longer, but it was fantastic to catch up with him. He got to catch up with Craig Heisinger. Zinger was, I don't know if you saw it, Zinger was legendary. Like, I talked to him on Sunday afternoon against Vancouver, and it was not a good first period for the Jets. They were completely outplayed by Vancouver, and I asked him if there was improvement from the first period of the game against Edmonton to the game against Vancouver, and his only answer was no. And 4 years, it was like just a resounding no. And like, the best part of it was, if that would have happened to me 4 years ago, I would have been deer in the headlights. What do I do now? But I know that's him. You just move on to the next subject. But he's the best. He's the best because he's blunt. He's honest. You never know. He never holds back. And that was one of those times. But
no wasted words. No wasted words.
He did have some good words to say about the goaltending and the work.
Well, let's start there. There because I mean, listen, I never try and take too much from this. I mean, when you're watching you'll see some kids that stand out. He's really fast. He's got a good shot.
Yeah.
Some of those individual things that'll pop out. But I mean, you're putting these guys together. You're playing. Listen, this is not a coached up squad. This is, go out there, show what you can do. And listen, sometimes that can lead to sloppy play, defensive breakdowns. It certainly did seem like the goalies were given plenty of opportunities to shine, and both of them did. What did you think about the young men in net?
Yeah, it was, Dominic DiVincentis in the first game on Friday against Edmonton, and he flat out kept them in the game. They lost 3-1, but he makes 33 saves, and he was outstanding. So you think with DiVincentis last year, he had to wait till the third game of the tournament. So imagine being a young kid and you're watching Arvid Holm go, and then Oskari Salminen goes, and then it's his turn. You have to wait all the way through there. But what he took from that was the ability to watch how these guys prepared before the game. DiVincentis ended up being the only goaltender to win a game in the tournament last year as he won the finale against Calgary, and it was great there and great again. And then you go to Thomas Milic on Sunday afternoon against Vancouver when they were completely outplayed for the first 2 periods. There's a lot of guys from Abbotsford on that roster that Vancouver brought, so there was that men versus boys kind of thing going on for a little bit. But Thomas Milic was unbelievable. He was so good. He had an unbelievable save right at the end of the second period that kept the Jets only down 2 goals. And then there was a huge scrum afterwards. And I talked to a lot of players afterwards. They said that scrum got them fired up. And of course, Winnipeg played much better in the third period, all because Thomas Milic held them in for the first 40 minutes. And then both goaltenders were fantastic again on Monday morning. So if there's one place to be excited about, and I'm not taking away from anybody else because everybody had their moments, and we'll get to that in a second, it's just that the goaltending looks like it's in a good place. And speaking with Drew McIntyre, who's the Moose goaltending coach / consultant, he scouted both those players before they were drafted by the Winnipeg Jets. He played a large role. He's had a great relationship with them. And he said to me after the Edmonton game that, if I asked those guys to stand on their head and stop pucks that way, they would. That's how much they take, they're great. They're very coachable. They take information. DiVincenzo's told me, he goes, I can't get enough information from Drew. I want to take advantage of this as much as I can. So I think, it's a ways down the road. We don't want to look like next year right now about DiVincenzo and Milic, but it looks like the Jets are in a good spot with goaltenders who are drafted in the 7th and 5th round, respectively.
Well, exactly. And I mean, obviously, DiVincenzo projects to go back to the Ontario Hockey League.
Yes.
I think he just had like a 55 save performance in the first game of the season before coming
against Colby Barlow and company. So it's just like
picking up where he left off last season.
Another story that you'll love. When I was talking to DiVincenzo, he said, I was talking to Colby Barlow before this tournament started. I'm like, listen, kid. He says, I'm like, listen, kid. He's like 1 year older than Colby Barlow. And he's like, just play your game and you're going to relax. DiVincenzo, all of one game of Young Stars Classic, experience, passing on wisdom to Colby Barlow. I found that very, very funny. But I mean, it's fantastic that, they're friends clearly from their time in the Ontario Hockey League and being Winnipeg Jet prospects, but just you can sense they're a tight-knit group already at this age, so that can only bode well later in the future.
Well, I mean, listen, and Barlow was one of just such a big story coming out of the draft, heading into development camp right afterwards.
Yeah.
I mean, he and Rucker McGrory sort of being the vibes guys in and around there that was just so positive. I mean, it was so much fun talking about it and hearing from the guys when we were here on this program back in early July. But now, I mean, this is serious business. This is professional hockey going into training camp, which is why for a player like Barlow, I think this tournament is so important. I mean, did you see him sort of progress through the weekend? I mean, get better, get more comfortable through it, and just what were your observations of him? And I'm sure you spoke with him as well. How did he feel that the entire operation went from the Jets first rounder from 2023?
Yeah, well, Mark Morrison said after the first game against Edmonton on Friday that there's a lot of players out there that looked overwhelmed with the speed and size and strength of the opposition. So Edmonton had a few guys that played the American Hockey League in Bakersfield, so a lot of bigger guys, stronger players. I think Colby Barlow kind of fit into that category. And then in the third period against Vancouver, he had a great power play goal and a great setup from Daniel Torgerson. And then you saw him in the shootout with this beautiful shootout goal, looked for 5-hole, and he fired it right through the pads to help the Jets win that shootout. So you see it, and they got set up a couple of times in the power play. You see the release. DiVincenzo was talking about how heavy his shot is, how great his release is. It's there. So that was, you didn't see it in the first game, but you saw it in the next 2 games. That was something to really be excited about. And another guy, Nikita Chibrikov, fantastic in the third game against Calgary. You're starting to see him dangle. And another thing, he's diminutive, but does not shy away from the hard areas in front of the goal. He doesn't stay away from contact. He was competitive in all 3 zones. So there's a guy that's going to be a big part of the Manitoba Moose this year, and it looks like he's already acclimating himself to North American hockey very quickly. By the way, his English is tremendous. I'm sure you saw the interviews.
That's what stood out to me from the interviews. I mean, it is so rare you get a Russian coming over at that age that can communicate that. And to be honest, Jamie, that is going to be massive for him because, I mean, when young people come over in positions, like a Chibrikov is, I mean, it's one thing to feel comfortable on the ice. That's probably the easy part as opposed to every other way of life fitting in within your team. And I was just amazed at how well he speaks English. And I think that's going to be huge for him as he sort of, integrates himself into this organization and into this community.
He's genuinely excited about being here, like flat out. And I think when he puts the effort in to learn English, which is clearly not an easy thing to do coming from Russia for the first time, but he's got it down pat. Like he understands everything. He understands what you're asking. He understands what he's saying. So I think that's a great place for him to be in. And then on top of that, he said yesterday, his goal obviously is to make the National Hockey League, but it also helps. The Winnipeg Jets are just down the hallway in the exact same building as the Manitoba Moose. And he says that's a little extra incentive for him going into his first pro season in North America. So I think, he has a great shot. Scored a goal yesterday, a goal scorer's goal coming out from behind the net, and roof daddied it. It was pretty good shot, and he had a whole bunch of scoring chances before that. And again, not shying away from contact, threw the body around a little bit too. So I think there's some genuine excitement about Nikita Chibrikov heading into this, of course, training camp. Not sure if we'll get a look at him in preseason hockey, but we know for sure he's going to play with the Manitoba Moose this year.
Jamie Thomas joining us to wrap the Penticton tournament for the Jets prospects heading into main camp. Two guys that I'm sure were getting plenty of attention on the ice, and enough from you guys, former first-rounders, Brad Lambert and Chaz Lucius. How much do you find that they progressed from their first kick at this last year?
Yeah, a lot. Both players played center at this tournament. Both players saw some time on the power play. It was great to see. Chaz Lucius looks like you're starting to see the skill that the Jets were looking at and why they drafted him in the first round. And like the important part is the guy's healthy. He's got a smile on his face. He's enjoying life. Had a great second game. Played extensively with Chibrikov and Barlow. Did Chaz Lucius too, and Brad Lambert had a great tournament as well. Going to see him at center. Now, I don't know if we'll see him at center during the preseason at all for the Jets. That'll be another big question mark or something to watch for when you're putting together your lines that you think could be put together throughout training camp. But I'm with you, buddy. It's just so hard to take everything so seriously when things will change so quickly, right? Who knows how long the junior age players are going to be here? Who knows how long before the Jet? October 1st, I believe, is when the Moose start training camp. So like, it's gonna come fast. So don't get used to what you're seeing right now in the next little bit here, because it's going to change real fast.
Jamie Thomas with this here. The other guy I found myself, and I mean, I didn't watch all of the games, but I was tuning in. The one that I was particularly excited to see and continue to see how he does in training camp is on the blue line, and that was Elias Salmonson. Did score a goal, I believe, from Chibrikov at one point. Tell us a little bit about what you saw from Elias, who who many people think has the ability to play at a high level right now. The question, of course, for the organization is what is the best path for him developing, because he still is a very, very young man, despite playing on a top team in the top league in Sweden.
Right. And I think all you got to do is look at it. Elias Salmonson looks really, really young when you meet him face to face, but a quiet kid, but you see everything they're talking about, makes great decisions. He's good at moving the puck right away, gets himself out of trouble, battles in front of the net with the opposing forwards. So he was paired with Simon Lundmark yesterday because Tyrell Bauer didn't play in the final game against Calgary. And I like that pairing. And like Simon Lundmark had, I thought, a solid tournament as well. But for Salmonson, scored a goal yesterday. Great shot from the point on the power play. Almost scored on the power play in the game against Edmonton on Friday. Friday rang a puck off the post. So the offensive side is there, but I think it's the decision-making process where he excels. And I think he's in a good place heading into training camp. And he's a guy, I feel like the roster is already committed to, unless something dramatic happens in training camp. But I think Elias Salmonson can make a big name for himself coming up over the next couple of weeks.
We've kind of touched on a bunch of the top prospects, and obviously they hit the goalies, Jamie. But give our listeners and Jet fans maybe a player or two that we haven't talked a lot about that you thought acquitted themselves very well for what the opportunity was there for them.
Danny Zilkin. Played the majority of the year last year in the Ontario Hockey League. I thought he's a smart player, like really, really smart. He played center a lot, had the shootout winning goal against Vancouver on Sunday afternoon. Didn't play against Calgary yesterday, but I thought he acquitted himself very well and looks quite comfortable up the middle for the Winnipeg Jets in this tournament. So he's one guy. I thought Daniel Torgerson played a lot better this year than he did last year. He's a big kid, like 6'3", 205. You could see why the Jets like him, right? He's got a good shot. He's always in front of the net. So I think he had a pretty good tournament as well. Last year got off to a slow start for the Manitoba Moose, but had a great second half as well. And then I'm a huge fan of Henry Nikkanen. So, great kid. Also played a lot better this tournament. Last year with the Manitoba Moose, the coaching staff really turned his game around by, getting to kill penalties. And that's really become his forte, his strength. He's good at face-offs. So, those three players stood out to me over the tournament on top of the guys I've already talked about.
Hey, you know what? I mean, T. Konopali's in the chat. So he is the founding member and president of the Tyrell Bauer fan club. Tell us about Bauer. And again, he's a very different player. I mean, we're talking about these young high draft picks and how they project. Listen, there's a lot of Bauer type players in the National Hockey League right now. Path is maybe a little bit different. Big, strong. Again, this is maybe a little different than the Moose days, playing against those pros. Way bigger and stronger than probably a lot of the competition. What did you see in Bauer? And just what do you make of his situation going into training camp with, a very, very busy logjam on defense, but coming off a nice pro debut?
I'll tell you this. He didn't play yesterday either, but and it's sad that I forgot to mention him, but he's the first defenseman they throw out when they're killing penalties, when, any type of scrum around the front of the net, anytime he got anywhere near Thomas Milic or Dominic DiVincentis, who's there? Tyrell Bauer. Who was wearing A this weekend? Tyrell Bauer. So I think that speaks to how the organization feels about him. We know you notice from development camp, he looks more comfortable. He's comfortable in his own skin within the organization. He's an excellent talker. He's a born leader, in my opinion. He was captain with the Seattle Thunderbirds in the Western Hockey League. He's the guy that teams, this young group has been looking at, for leadership and guidance, because he's got one pro year underneath his belt and because of his personality. He's a very welcoming guy from Cochrane, Alberta. Some good people come from that town I hear. So he was a great example, and his physicality is next level. Blocks shots, pays the price. Little nicked up on the weekend. He looked at me and said, "Don't worry, I'll be ready for camp." So it's everything you would want. And I could see why he would be a fan favorite. And I was looking the other day because I saw quite a few of his fights in the American Hockey League last year. And they were online, but the Manitoba Moose posted those. And I looked up his fight card on hockeyfights.com. And I think he only had 8 fights in the Western Hockey League. So I think that says to me, people respect him enough. They're not going to drop the gloves with him because he's that strong and tough. Right? He's missing a tooth. Like he's got a nice, he smiles at you. I'm like, I would never mess with that guy ever. So that's the attitude he has when he takes the ice. He's very competitive. So I think the Tyrell Bauer fan club is going to grow and grow over these next few years as a member of the organization.
Yeah, well, to use in an Evander Kane quote, both in training camp and next year, this upcoming season, likely with the Moose, individuals will have the opportunity to F around and find out from Bauer. Jamie, huge week for the organization. Start of training camp. Saturday, Fan Fest, the launch of the unveiling of a new jersey that we'll get a chance to see this year. Fill us in on what's your schedule like? And for crying out loud, people are going crazy for speculative training camp lines right now. Let us know what content you guys have coming, because it certainly seems there's quite a thirst around these parts for everything and all things Jets.
Well, I don't know if you have looked on our social channels already, but there's a great interview with Colby Barlow and Danny Zilkin after the game against Vancouver on Sunday afternoon. It was a one-on-one interview. Colby Barlow interviewed Danny Zilkin, who scored the shootout winner. That was fantastic. I got the not-so-long walks on the beach with Tyrell Bauer and Chaz Lucius. We find out the meaning or not, where Chaz and Cruz got their names from, what was the genesis of those unique names from the Luciuses, his parents on that one. And then, of course, at FanFest, I usually get to interview Kevin Shoveldayoff and a few of the Jets players. And Sarah gets the fun job of unveiling the new jersey. So clearly we know where I sit on the totem pole. You did this, Sarah gets the brand new jersey. but I'll be on stage around 11 o'clock on Saturday morning. It's fun. It's fun for people who don't get to come to games very often throughout the season. It's as close for a lot of people that get to the Jets players. They walk by the stage and on the ice for practice, but a great event. And I always love the jousting off to the right of the stage all the time that's going on. I always think of Gary Lawless and Darren Millard on social media. Yes. It just pops up all the time. Did you see that Lawless post with him with the Ken wig on?
The Ken. Yeah, did we put that?
He was so close. He's a body double for Ken. He's a body double for Ken. Flat out Gary Lawless.
I'll say, listen, Gary famously said back on HNL that he had asked his wife if he could possibly work out a deal where he could wear a wig just 2 or 3 times a year for special occasions and whatnot. It was not passed. The motion did not carry.
That wig is terrifying.
But he was sincere. Here it is. And he texted me. He was so fired up that he was able to wear this wig for it. And by the way, the big guy's looking good too. He's looks like he's been taking care of himself this summer, getting out a little bit. But yes, only Lawless.
You don't have kids, Huss? You haven't seen Despicable Me 3 and Gru, which is Steve Carell, his twin brother Drew. That's exactly. Look it up online. That's what Lawless looks like when you get a chance. Gru and Drew, please. You'll see what I'm talking about. I know McIntyre's waiting, so I better get out of here.
Hey, dude, get back. Yeah, you just want to get back to the waiver wire is what you want to be doing. There are claims to be put in.
Jerome Ford is going to be on my roster here as soon as I get going.
Hey, we'll see you down at the rink this week, and obviously for a huge day at FanFest. Really looking forward to being a part of that. Have a great one, and thanks for jumping on with us today, JT.
Thanks, buddy.
Okay, right on. There is Jamie Thomas. Lots of great content on the Jet socials right now. And, of course, it gets going for real. We'll hear from Chevy and Coach Bonus tomorrow. And then, of course, the first official day of camp on Thursday. But Mike's going to come up. We're going to hit all the big stories heading into training camp around your Winnipeg Jets. But do want to give a big shout-out to our friends at Wallace & Wallace, Winnipeg's fencing and overhead door specialist. You know that they're the fencing experts, and they've been doing it all, both temporary and permanent, all season long. But they're also the leaders in overhead garage doors. And your overhead garage door had a lot of ups and downs this summer. Working hard to get you to and from all that summer fun, but it's about to work a whole lot harder because winter puts way more stress on a garage door. The right time to prevent downtime this winter is now. Call Wallace & Wallace to book your inspection and maintenance service call today. For residential and commercial overhead door sales and service, there's only one name or two you need to know, and that, of course, is Wallace & Wallace. Shout out to our friends at Vita Health Fresh Market, featuring great prices on natural and organic supplements, beauty products, groceries, and Winnipeg's largest selection of local products, too, with 6 locations and, of course, online at myvita.ca. Gearing up for back to school? Keep your energy up with Health First B12 Supreme. B12 is involved in so many functions of our bodies, like metabolizing carbs, fats, and proteins, which are converted into energy. Health First B12 Supreme is on sale all month at Vita Health. And don't forget, if you can't make it down to one of the 6 Vita Health stores, visit their website to buy online or pick up for local delivery. Vita Health Fresh Market, empowering people to lead healthy lives. 6 Winnipeg locations and online at myvita.ca. Well, school's in session. Training camp's beginning tomorrow. Well, it might be time to check into the closet and see if you need to up your menswear game. And if you are in that situation, folks, there's only one place to go. Of course, that's F Apparel. Custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. And if you are having a wedding or involved in a wedding party, talk to Andrew, Alex, and their staff about a 15% discount for everybody in the wedding party when you get your suits at F Apparel. F's at 190 Smith Street, downtown. Make an appointment or find out more online at F, that's EPH Apparel.com. sportstalkdaily.com. A big shout out to Nick and Nikki DQ. This is blizzard weather today, folks. Good thing those summer blizzard flavors are still around. Pushing 28 degrees today. That's what I'm talking about. And I'm also talking about the best in ice cream treats at 104 Nick and Nikki DQ locations. Northgate, Polo Park, St. Anne's, and the DQ in Niverville. And speaking of Niverville, their new pita pit is now open. Healthy, delicious, fresh and fast pita pit available for you in Niverville. And of course, if you do want catering options from Pita Pit, hit them up on X at Pita Pit Niverville. All right, let's get ready for Jets training camp with Mike McIntyre. Mike, I guess we should just get right to the hockey and not talk about our big fantasy matchup on the weekend. There's a valiant effort by your squad. It was a huge tilt.
So I did something crazy in an attempt to beat you, Huss, and it absolutely imploded on me. So after Sunday, I think it gave me about a 6% chance of beating you. And I only had one guy going yesterday, Amari Cooper, except all the reports were that Cooper was not going to play yesterday. So what did I do? I wasn't ready to concede the week to you. I actually dropped Amari Cooper, which was dumb. And I forget who I picked up a Pittsburgh receiver who did nothing.
Allen Robertson. 2 catches, 12 yards.
Meanwhile, Cooper played and went for close to 100 yards. Now, I haven't done the math. If I had just held on to Cooper, I think I would have still lost, but only by a couple points.
By a point or two.
Yeah.
By a point or two, to be honest.
Except now the end result is not only did I lose, I also put one of my best receivers on the waiver wire. I don't think I'm revealing anything too crazy here and saying I've already made a reclaim for him, except I suspect that he's going to get scooped up before I can get my hands back on him. I'm basically trying to undo the mistake that I made, but this was all in a panic because I didn't want to just give you the week. I wanted to go down swinging, and in the end, I should have just kept Cooper because he ended up playing anyways and was better than the guy who I replaced him with. It's just catastrophic. But I did win. I beat Hodge in week 1, so I'm 1-1. I think it's you, Remis, and Taylor are the only undefeated squad so far here.
Well, shout out to the Pittsburgh defense because that really helped me. I mean, the other guys I had last night didn't really do a heck of a lot. Jamal Williams got hurt. But 26 from the Pittsburgh D.
I actually have the Pittsburgh D in the other league I'm in, and they ended up giving me a come from behind victory in that other league. So I can't complain too loudly. And I certainly wasn't cheering against the Pittsburgh D because while they were hurting me against you, they were helping me in the other pool.
Yeah,
so that's just the nature of fantasy football.
Always the case. And we actually will talk about that and get into a little NFL talk with Andy Mack later on in the program. Mike, well, we just talked about this with Jamie Thomas. I know you were keeping tabs on what was happening out in Penticton on the weekend.
Yeah.
Just before we kind of look into training camp, any takeaways? Any stocks rising of Jets prospects based on what you saw out in Penticton?
Well, the reigning Ontario Hockey League goaltender of the year and the reigning Western Hockey League goaltender of the year, that's a pretty nice 1-2 punch for the Jets to have in the system. And it's even nicer to have Huss with all the uncertainties surrounding Connor Hellebuck. Now, I'm not saying Dom DiVincentis or Thomas Milic is ready to step in and be a number one goalie in the NHL tomorrow or even a year from now. But the Jets have a couple of really intriguing goaltending prospects now in the system. Milic, we expect, is going to start his pro career this fall. Good chance he goes to Norfolk in the ECHL, where he can get a number of starts kind of to get his feet wet. Dom is probably going back to junior, we expect. But both those guys, especially the first 2 games, Huss, where the Jets were soundly outplayed through large stretches, both those goaltenders were tremendous. And, Milic held them in the game on Sunday. And ultimately was really the reason they came back to win. I really liked what I saw from Elias Salmonson. Kid looks really poised. Again, it's, they're playing against other kids, so you don't want to put too much stock or read too much into it. Scored a nice goal yesterday, hit a post in game one, really moves the puck well. I mean, seems to just always be in the right place at the right time. I'm really anxious now to see what he can do in the big camp, and maybe if he gets in a preseason game or two. And Nikita Chibrikov, who really stood out to me at the summer development camp. I really like what this kid has. He's not the biggest. I think he's 5'9". There's a lot of skill there, and he's actually a bit of a pest. He's a bit of an agitator. Doesn't shy away from contact at all. Was often in the middle of things, but he's got all kinds of skill and speed. I thought Sunday he was, probably the best non-goaltender for the Jets team on the ice. And Colby Barlow, impressive, scores a nice goal, seems to, be in the right place at the right time as well. So yeah, there's some positive takeaways for sure. And no doubt, for some of these kids getting their first taste, a good experience for them as they now come into main camp later this week.
Yeah, just quickly on DiVincentis. He in a lot of ways, he reminds me of Sabres top prospect Devin Levi.
Yeah.
7th round pick, somewhat off the radar. Now, again, Levi was from, I believe, the junior B in Ontario. And then went to Northeastern, whereas DiVincentis has basically, just had 2 incredible years in North Bay. But last year took it up even to a whole nother level. And that's the crazy thing. And we can think back to Connor Hellebuck when he was picked and no one knew who the heck he was or where even the Odessa Jackalopes were. And unlike a lot of the other positions where you pretty much know what you're getting in a first or a second pick, there is a bit of Wheel of Fortune, if you will, when it comes to drafting goaltenders. And it seems like the Winnipeg Jets, particularly with the DiVincentis pick in the 7th round, have hit on a young man with a ton of potential. And, we see Levi probably breaking into the NHL this year, played 7 games at the end of last year. Yep. I mean, I think the plan would be, if they're on similar paths, another year a junior, a year with the Manitoba Moose. And then I think this young man is going to be very much in the mix for playing time with Winnipeg. I guess the biggest question around that is how difficult will it be to get minutes in net? Because, of course, that is going to be a big story when we come in. Just to Hellebuck and Scheifele, because, there's so many other things I want to get to. How do you see Thursday going when, there's the first media availabilities? And will this be something they will kind of try and speak about it once and then that is it and focus in on hockey? And how realistic will that be to actually achieve the goal of quieting the talk about everything going on around their situations as opposed to what's happening on the ice?
Just to finish your thought on DiVincentis, I expect he may very well be the Team Canada World Junior starter this year. That would seem to be a logical progression based on what he did last year and the path that he's on. And you're right. Looking just ahead to next year, Haas, probably a very good chance that DiVincentis and Milic, that might be your 1-2 on the farm for a season. The 2 Young Stars goalies are probably going to be teammates as early as next year again. As for Thursday, and yeah, I fully expect Scheifele and Hellebuck will speak on day one, officially day one of camp when they have their media availabilities, because I think if you're the Jets, you don't want to kick this down the road any further. And I don't suspect those guys do either. They want to get this out of the way. Hellebuck did speak over the summer. I forget who did the interview with him, where he was. I expect we're going to hear something similar what he said in that interview, which is not a whole lot. Certainly not tipping his hand about his future plans. But he's going to get asked about, do you want to stay in Winnipeg long-term? Both him and Mark Scheifele no doubt will. It will be interesting to see if they tiptoe around that question or if they address it bluntly. But to your bigger point, Haas, I do think that they'll get it out of the way and then it'll kind of go into the background for the time being. Certainly in this market. That's not to say we won't touch on it at times. I think where, though, it's going to get brought up repeatedly is when the Jets hit the road once the season begins, especially in big media markets, other Canadian cities, some U.S. centers. When they go to places like Michigan, the Jets are in Detroit early in the season. You think that's going to be a hot topic around, the Michigan media, Connor Hellebuck's home state. So, I suspect that this is something that is going to keep coming up until there's kind of some clarity. Right now, it's very cloudy. But I don't know that anyone should be holding their breath waiting for that clarity, because certainly the message we got last week, and even kind of hearing a little bit from Kevin Cheveldayoff at the Adam Lowry captain announcement, the message from Kevin Cheveldayoff, the message from some veteran players, we talked to Josh Morrissey and Brendan Dillon late last week, is they are hyper-focused on the present. They're not worried about the future. They'll let that sort itself out. They're trying to get off to a great start this year. They're trying to win. They believe that they have a better chance of doing that with Hellebuck and Scheifele, and everything else is white noise. I think Hellebuck and Scheifele, they kind of address the elephant in the room. They probably don't say anything all that revealing, and then it does kind of fade into the background for the time being.
Just on the Scheifele situation, I mean, we've talked about this plenty, but not as much lately. I mean, I really think that the team was ready to make a move in the offseason, but the market for Mark just wasn't there.
Right.
If he does have a good start, and maybe, the market all of a sudden appears, if he's playing well, it makes it harder to trade him. I mean,
sure.
Short of an extension, which is not something that I'm expecting, what do you think is the most likely result of the uncertainty of Mark Scheifele's future at some point? I mean, is it a trade, or is it playing out his contract, as a big part of this season this year, and, instead of making a trade, utilizing that cap space somewhere else next season, but having a huge hole at center to fill?
I do think if the Jets are in a playoff spot as we approach the trade deadline, or, whether it's comfortably in a playoff spot or in a fight for one, I just don't see this team, based on everything we've heard early on here, I just don't see kind of the white flag being waved in the form of trading your top center, especially if Scheifele's playing so well that there's a robust trade market. If he's playing that well, chances are it's helping the Jets as well. I mean, it is a bit of a catch-22.
Yeah.
And it's what we've been talking about for months. This is potentially what's going to happen. So if you're the Jets and Mark Scheifele, let's just say, to your scenario, Scheifele's playing really well, the Jets are playing well, all of a sudden a bunch of teams are inquiring about him, but you're the Jets, you're in a good spot, so you don't want to move a guy. But then if Scheifele's playing well and everyone's happy, I mean, does that then cause everyone to revisit the idea of an extension? Because maybe the grass is actually greener here, and the devil is better than the one you don't. It looks, based on the line, the groupings, that we can deduce that Mark Scheifele's probably going to get a look here with Kyle Connor and Gabe Vilardi starting Thursday, based on, who's with who in what group. That has the potential to be a really neat line. What if those guys start lighting it up early on and Mark Scheifele says, this is great. I love this line. I love my new teammate. I love how things are going in Winnipeg. What if Mark Scheifele's busting his butt to play defense? And, as he did at times early in the season, and Rick Bowness is heaping praise upon Scheifele. And the Jets are winning and the vibes are great. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility, I suppose. And it could cause everyone to maybe take another look at a situation that seemed pretty cut and dry. Maybe it isn't so cut and dry anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is one of the. I really do truly believe that this is going to be determined by the Jets' performance in the first 25 games or 30 games of the season.
Thanksgiving,
I think we'll have a pretty good idea about where, and maybe more so than any other team. There's a lot that they need to figure out in the first 20, 25, 30 games of the season because of everything that comes with those massive, potentially franchise-altering decisions on two of your most important players.
Really, there are. And if you look around the NHL landscape, sure, every team's got players that are entering the final year of their contract. There's not a team out there that has their number one center and their number one goaltender, their leading goal scorer, their 3-time Vezina nominee on expiring contracts. And there's a reason we talk about Scheifele and Hellebuyck so much and barely mention Nino Niederreiter, Dylan DeMello, Brendan Dillon. Those guys are all pending UFAs as well, but they're not in the same category of drafted and developed homegrown talent that have been here from the start, the only franchise they've known, the pillars really that the Jets have tried to build around. So sure, I mean, you can talk about those guys too, and decisions have to be made. Chances are they're not fetching the same return, nor is what you do or don't do with those guys going to have the same kind of short and potential long-term impact on this organization that the handling of Scheifele and or Hellebuyck is going to have. And you're right, it just creates a fascinating scenario that, I'm sure Kevin Cheveldayoff and company have thought about different scenarios and, what road they might go down if this were to happen. A bit of a choose your own adventure, if you will. Right now, though, the road seems pretty straight. And everyone's just focused on the here and now. At least that's what everyone's saying publicly. Is there more panic and concern behind the scenes? Maybe. But right now, everybody's just talking about what they have here right now. And there seems to be a lot of excitement about what they have here right now. And I think, Huss, there's good reason to be excited about what the Jets have in the here and now. Especially when you're talking the forward group and what looks like a very, very deep forward group. Yeah,
well, and one of those forwards with an expiring contract you just mentioned is Nino Niederreiter. I was putting together the questions for the sports trivia last week at Little Brown Jug, and I always try and do some questions relating to either tangentially to the team. You know that Nino Niederreiter has 7 20-goal seasons in the NHL? He basically shows up and you can count on 20 goals from him right now. And of all of those players, he is the guy I do wonder if the Winnipeg Jets will make a concerted effort and successfully get his name on an extension. I mean, he seems to have been such a great fit for where they want to go as far as a culture of the team. Certainly has been a productive player, can do it in a bunch of different roles, and at the end of the day has been a guy that has really sort of embraced this opportunity with the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, I think if we had to do Coolbet lines and making odds, he would be the most likely guy to have an extension. And listen, I think they think very highly of both DeMello and Dillon. It is a little different, though, with their age. And obviously with the situation on the blue line being as packed as it is, I'm not sure whether they would go and make a commitment like that to either one of those guys sooner or later. But are you sort of with me that if we're going to hear about someone extending a contract some point soon, Nino Niederreiter is the most likely one?
Oh, agreed. And Haas, I couple thoughts about Nino Niederreiter. I mean, I was there and I think we were in Carolina. That was the game where Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, and Nino Niederreiter, who were playing together as a line, when they got benched for the last half of the second period. And then after the game, we requested to speak to Scheifele. We were told no. Requested to speak to Kyle Connor. We were told no. Mark Scheifele literally walked by us.
It was a joke.
In the bowels of the arena, saw that we were kind of waiting around for him and just kept going. Who came out to talk? Nino Niederreiter, who had been with the Jets for all of about 2 weeks. Said everything you would want, said everything that Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor should have come out and said, especially Mark Scheifele. He wears a letter. Nino Niederreiter didn't wear a letter. Kyle Connor didn't wear a letter. Mark Scheifele was one of the 3 alternates on the team. Nino Niederreiter came out, handled it with absolute perfection. And I know for a fact, Huss, the the way Nino Niederreiter handled himself, there were people in the organization that took notice of that in a very good way. And a lot of people who sort of said, there's the example, to the point that I even threw Nino Niederreiter's name when we were talking about potentially another alternate if Mark Scheifele were to be moved and who steps in. Again, his contract status may ultimately tell that story, but he's a guy that has serious leadership qualities on the ice, off the ice. I had a great chat with him this summer over the phone. He was back in his native Switzerland. And, he comes across as extremely humble and grateful. We talked about his contract status, Huss, and he said he has to come to Winnipeg this year and earn another contract. This is a guy who, as you say, 720 goal seasons, he'd have every right to kind of rest on his laurels a little bit that, hey, I'm an established NHLer. Make me an offer. He's got the complete opposite mindset. He said, I got to come in and prove that I'm worth offering a new contract to. That's a great attitude to have. Again, if we're going on the groupings, I think there's a good chance Nino Niederreiter is going to start on the second line, at least in camp, perhaps with Nikolai Ehlers and Cole Perfetti. And again, that has the potential to, really be a productive trio. And I agree. I think they love what Nino Niederreiter brought after the trade deadline. They love what he's all about. And they're trying to build up a culture here that starts with Adam Lowry as the captain. I think Nino Niederreiter fits that culture to a T.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that was very evident very early, as you just mentioned. And he continues to be a guy that I think, is deserving of, that spot, that opportunity. But, also I think, the fit is there.
Yeah.
And you can't have all these guys go to free agency. So, and he's not the guy that I think that they'd be looking at flipping again. I mean, I do really think that he has just impressed so many people, both on and off the ice, that is a guy that we'll see. Well, you mentioned the lines, and I was giving Remis brain damage at the end of yesterday's show, speculating training camp lines, but you've gotten into it as well. Remis has done a great graphic for it. When you saw the groups, I mean, what were your takeaways from the way that this is split? Different than the Maurice era, it was always sort of like the team was there, and then if one guy came in out of camp or out of shape or whatever, he was, all of a sudden he's shown up in the B group, and that was a big message to it. Far more split with the Selanne and Numminen groups this year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say I told you so to people, but I have long believed that Cole Perfetti was going to get the first crack at that second line center spot. And based on the way these groupings are, with Perfetti and Vilardi being in different groups and Vilardi being in the Scheifele group, I think we can safely assume that Gabe Vilardi is not with Mark Scheifele to play center with Mark Scheifele being on his wing. Gabe Vilardi would likely slot in as the winger with how that group is slotted. And that would open the door for Cole Perfetti certainly to be a guy that gets a look. Now, to be clear, these Numminen Selanne groups, if you look at the schedule for camp, after about, 4 or 5 days, Numminen and Selanne disappears because there's going to be some cuts. There's probably going to be shuffling. And it isn't that long, Huss, into camp before they're actually down to one group. So, again, nothing is in permanent ink here. This is very much in pencil, and keep the eraser handy. But I do think that was my first takeaway is, it is Cole Perfetti who's going to get that first crack. But a pretty nice consolation prize if you're Gabe Vilardi. Like, I don't think, and I talked to him a couple weeks ago when he arrived in Winnipeg. Certainly he said he would love to play center, but he also enjoys playing wing. And I don't think at this point, if this is how it is, Huss, he's playing with the guy that scored 42 last year in Mark Scheifele and a guy that almost touched 50 a couple years ago in Kyle Connor. Like, that's a pretty nice way to break in with your new club, if that's indeed where he is. I think the rest of the group, we knew that the third line might look a little different. And Morgan Barron, for example, there's a good chance he gets pushed down to the fourth line. There are different ways the Jets could potentially go. I know Rick Bowness likes the Lowry-Appleton pairing, even though a lot of people question whether Mason Appleton, maybe he should be down on the fourth line. And look, Vlad Nemestikov might work his way up to that line with Lowry and Iafallo. And Iafallo and Niederreiter, maybe they switch spots at some point, and it's Iafallo up there on the second line and Niederreiter with Lowry and Appleton or Nemestikov on the third line. I think Rasmus Kupari was probably going to get a look at that fourth line center spot. Not the greatest news for the Gus Bus necessarily, who may be in some difficulty. And, you look, Huss, like, I'm of the belief that there's a good chance the Jets are going to carry 8 defensemen out of camp this year. And a big reason of that is because they have so many guys on one ways. All of Stanley, Chisholm, Capobianco, those guys would all need waivers. I believe personally that it's Stanley and Chisholm as 7-8, and Capobianco perhaps gets exposed to waivers. And again, this is assuming everybody's healthy and there's no trades. But if that's the case, Haas, they can only carry 13 forwards, not 14. And there's a lot of guys that are potentially going to get exposed to waivers and or sent to the Moose. Guys like Gustafson, Harkins, Janssen Fialbi, Jeffrey Viel, who they signed this summer to provide perhaps some toughness. There's a number of guys that Dominic Toninato, who there's just doesn't seem to be room necessarily because of how deep they are at forward. And so to me, one of the big battles in training camp is going to be kind of for that 13th forward job. I know it's not the sexiest of battles, but there's a lot of good players with NHL games on their resume who there's just not going to be any room for them on the Jets roster on opening night.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, Harkins had that monster season with the Moose when he was down there. I'm not sure where he kind of fits.
Pass through waivers if they put him on waivers this year? He did last year, but then he went down and did all the right things at the AHL level. I'm not so sure about that, Huss. I mean, the reality is the Jets may be deep to the point that they may lose a couple guys on waivers, assuming, again, that they're healthy and no trades are made. That just might be the way it goes because of the depth that they have right now.
No, it is certainly a fair point, Mike. The one thing I'll say about those lines, if you put Balharry with Scheifele and Connor, like, he is kind of a trigger man himself. I mean, he had 23 goals and 18 assists last year. I mean, this is a guy that shoots the puck quite a bit. And listen, I know Mark had, it was sort of an aberration based on his career, the 42-goal season, a career high. Everything was going in earlier on in the season. Right. And Kyle Connor went down a little bit. But, I mean, listen, Rick Bowness has been to this well before. I mean, there's good and there's bad of putting Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele together. And, I mean, to be honest, I know Iafallo plays on the left side. I mean, I'd speculate at one point, maybe they look at a guy like that who has proven to be, a really effective defensive forward and a good guy in that middle. Because as much as Vilardi brings a lot to the table and you go, wow, there's 3 really good players on that line. I mean, we saw what happened last year. I mean, I think the goal for Rick Bowness is put it this way, if he's moving Scheifele back to center and he's going to be that number 1 guy and he's playing with Kyle Connor, they need to find a way to not have as big a negative impact in their own end for all the great things that happen in the other team's zone.
For sure. And, that's where Huss, I do wonder if at some point Rick Bowness goes completely off the books here a little bit. And let's say you take those 4 lines as we have them on the screen here right now, but really mix them up and basically create a 1A, B, C, and D. And you could do that with this group.
Wait a second. Are we shaking up the speculative training camp lines right now, Mike?
So, for example, what if you put Mason Appleton with Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor? For the very reason that you just talked about, right? Or Vlad Nemestikov with those guys. And basically put like 2 elite offensive guys together and then a bit more of a glue guy. We've seen it have success, whether it's, Michael Bunting or Zach Hyman. And I'm not saying that the Jets have a Bunting or a Hyman, but more of the grittier kind of role type player that meshes really well with the high. I go back to the Sedin twin days and Alex Burrows and all the chemistry he found playing with the Sedin twins. I'm not saying Rick Bowness does it, but there's the potential, if he wanted to create 4 extremely balanced lines that you don't even care about matchups at that point. It's just whoever the next line is up, they're out there. And at the end of the night, ideally, every line would play about 25% of the 5-on-5 minutes. Specialty teams would tick up your more skilled guys. That would be an option that, I don't think the Jets have necessarily had in years past. I think with the group of 12 that we think probably breaks camp as the top 12, there is the ability to do that if he really wanted to.
What about Scheifele with Velarde and Iafallo?
Yeah, I mean, basically put him between the kings. And Velarde and Iafallo, I suspect, would have some chemistry together. I know they've played together in the past. I don't know if they've played a ton together, but I mean, that would be one way to do it for sure. Then do you go back? Do you have Connor and Ehlers together? Connor and Ehlers broke camp last year with Mark Scheifele. Would you put Connor and Ehlers with Cole Perfetti, Huss? I mean, is that asking a lot again of Cole Perfetti?
Well, guess what? If he's going to play second line center in the National Hockey League, a lot is going to be asked of him. So at a certain point, you got to either sink or swim from where I'm coming at, because there's other guys that can do the job if he can't.
Well, and again, so that's where I get into what if if you wanted to make balanced lines, what about Lowry between Connor and Ehlers? Just as a thought, we know Rick Bowness played Nikolai Ehlers and Adam Lowry together at points last year. And then you've got, say, Perfetti with Niederreiter and Appleton or something like that, or Nemestikov. Again, there's just infinite possibilities. I saw somebody tweeted the other day that they said you could almost take these 12 forwards, you could almost just draw names out of a hat, and that they would be pretty comfortable with what the Jets forward group, and their point was they still have lots of concerns about the blue line. But I think the point was that the Jets forward group right now is a really interesting mix. And again, we're not even talking about guys like Harkins and Toninato and AJF and Gustafsson and Reichel, who all played NHL game, and Lucius and Lambert, and whether they could force their way into the mix. I just think the Jets, have a wealth of options right now at the forward position, and how Rick Bowness wants to play this is certainly going to be a very interesting part of training camp that we'll see how it shakes out.
Yes, well, we'll see whether these speculative training camp lines change again tomorrow and then on Thursday, and then we'll actually have something to go for. And
right.
I'm already getting, speaking of lines, betting lines on who will be the first media member to tweet out the lines. The race will be on with your new colleague, Ken Wee,
yes,
yourself, Murat, and we will be following it here. We are going to be following it here. I know Michael Remis, aka Click Bonus, is going to be all over that, seeing who is the that's from Issue Boy Bruce, because of course he knows that just talking about lines is like, putting a steak in front of a dog. By the way, as we're doing this, we're pushing our biggest number all day long on the live stream right now. Hashtag Remo was right. Hit the thumbs up button and definitely hit the subscribe button, folks. So lots of momentum, getting close to 10,000 subscribers, hopefully by the time the puck drops on the season. Mike, before we go, outside of our line speculation, and certainly Scheifele and Hellebuck status at the top of that list, what are some of the other storylines that you and the Free Press team are going to be really focusing in on right out of the gate with these first couple days heading into FanFest?
Yeah, Kenny and I were putting our collective heads together today and actually have a comprehensive training camp preview, which will be online later today and in tomorrow's print edition. And there are a number of storylines for sure. I mean, I think Cole Perfetti is fascinating to me because this is a guy who, first round draft pick. He's had 3 significant injuries and his first 2 seasons prematurely. He changed his training. He's going to get a golden opportunity. And if Cole Perfetti can stay mobile for 82 games or very close to it and can be the player that I think a lot of people think he can be, that alone will be a massive boost to the Winnipeg Jets. And so Cole Perfetti is certainly a player that I'll be keeping a really close eye on. I think Declan Chisholm, again, for reasons that this is a guy who seemingly has kind of proven himself in the AHL, probably doesn't deserve to be in that league anymore. And yet, where is there a spot for him right now? We know Rick Bowness, he healthy scratched Nate Schmidt for a game last year. That was a pretty expensive press box assignment, given the ticket that Schmidt carries. If Declan Chisholm can come and have a splendid training camp, does that force Winnipeg's hand to do something that, does Kevin Cheveldayoff have a trade or two in his back pocket that he's going to wait and see how things shake out here to alleviate what certainly on paper, Huss, and I think on the ice too, looks to be a logjam on the blue line. And I just don't know how this sorts itself out, other than to say, if the Jets, after losing Johnny Kovacevic for nothing on waivers last year, if the Jets were to lose a Declan Chisholm this time around, I think the fans, and they would have every right to be very angry with some of the asset management going on. I don't think the Jets can afford to lose drafted and developed players like that they've invested in. And so to me, the blue line logjam is a major storyline. And I don't know the answer to how it's going to sort itself out. But that's what we're going to find out here over the next
It's an issue.
weeks.
Listen, I think everything that was made about the Kovacevic situation was way overblown last year. I mean, listen, there's a reason why the waiver system exists. And it exists for guys that are, 10th in a depth chart on a team that might have a chance to play on a worse team. And yeah, listen, obviously, if you know you're going to put this guy up and you can trade them, you do it. But I mean, those players, they are by definition replacement level players. And there's often not a market. However, it would be an absolute shame with what Chisholm's shown so far to lose that player without really getting a chance to see what he can do at the NHL level. So I do agree with it. I agree on that. One more for you, Mike. Of course, last week, the big announcement was Adam Lowry's the new captain of the Winnipeg Jets. And, he, Josh Morrissey, and for now Mark Scheifele are kind of part of that leadership group. But it seems like there's a lot of other guys that are, sort of going to be a big part of that as well. But this offseason, the Jets paid a lot of money to tell a guy that had been here since day one of 2.0 and just scored 55 points last year that this team would be better off without him at a big cost. Now that the captaincy has been announced and training camp is beginning, what do you think organizationally they are hoping the results of the Wheeler buyout to be in that dressing room and on the ice?
Well, I think they hope that this team in a lot of ways follows the lead of Adam Lowry in terms of how he conducts himself off the ice, how he prepares himself for games, how he deals with teammates, how he deals with the media. Certainly there was no questioning Blake Wheeler's on-ice work ethic. This is a guy who played through all kinds of injuries, but certainly Blake Wheeler, and I think especially in the later years, left a lot to be desired when it came to maybe some of his interactions with young players, some of his interactions with teammates, and certainly his interactions with the media. And I think Adam Lowry, this was designed to be a real turning of the page, out with the old, in with the new. And the idea of really creating a new culture here. They talked a lot about a new culture last year with Blake Wheeler in the room. It wasn't realistically going to happen. Now he's gone. And I think that page has been turned. And I think Adam Lowry, look, Josh Morrissey would have been a great choice for the very same reasons. I would have been saying the very same things about Josh Morrissey. The fact is, Morrissey or Lowry, both those guys have what it takes to, I think, lead this team for the next few years. And so I think that it was more than just symbolic putting the C on Lowry's chest last week. It really was a tangible moment for this organization, an important moment. And I fully expect, knowing everything we do about Adam Lowry, that he's going to drag his teammates into the battle. And it's easy to do all the things right when things are going well. It's when they aren't going so well, how you handle adversity. And I think Adam Lowry has the mettle, has the makeup to be the perfect guy to kind of weather that storm, whether it's an individual struggle or a team-wide struggle. He's got the makeup to do it. And I think the Jets are in really good hands with Adam Lowry.
Let me just one more on that one. What do you think the effect of not having Blake around anymore will be on Mark Scheifele?
Well, and that's the unanswered question that I think until we actually see it in action, it's hard to say. But I really do wonder, and this goes back to even when I've speculated about the potential to revisit an extension. Do we get a completely new Mark Scheifele? Is he a changed man? Is he a new individual? For a lot, not just that, but as you say, Huss, maybe the realization that a robust trade market didn't develop the way he thought it would. That maybe things are better, the grass is greener here than it is elsewhere. I just really wonder if there's been a bit of an awakening or an enlightenment for Mark Scheifele, and not having the guy that he was kind of attached to at the hip and Blake Wheeler around. Does that open things up for Mark Scheifele to be more like himself, be more of himself? I don't know, but I think it certainly creates the potential for that. And it will be interesting to see what that actually looks like in kind of real time.
Yeah, to me, that is, and I know BA's probably in chat going, that's the path to me owing him $40 instead of just the 20 for the trade that didn't happen so far this season. But I mean, listen, for a whole bunch of reasons, all eyes are going to be on 55, both when he speaks tomorrow, or I guess probably on Thursday. The other guy that we're going to hear from is Bones. And just before you go, Mike, we all remember how the season ended. And from the sounds of it, there've been plenty of conversations, as Bones is known to do, with the players throughout the offseason. But do you think that even gets touched on? Whether there was even a need to mend any fences, or these are just a bunch of competitive guys that, we're all ticked off with the way the season ended, and hopefully that'll be a bit of a fire starter, if you will, for the collective group. But I mean, as far as the messaging from the coach, will that even be touched on, do you think?
Well, I think it will be touched on for sure. And I suspect we'll hear that Rick Bowness, we know he's a guy who has a lot of contact with his players over the summer. I mean, just talking with Josh Morrissey and Brendan Dillon last week, sounds like those guys were in contact a lot. Adam Lowry talked about, the number of times he talked to Rick Bowness over the summer. I suspect Rick Bowness had a lot of conversations with a lot of people about a lot of things. So I think it will get touched on. I think we'll hear about it being water under the bridge, and maybe in a way, a bit of a reminder to players about where they've been and where they kind of don't want to go back to. Nobody wants to see that kind of rear its ugly head again. I think that's another storyline of camp here, Huss. Don't forget, a year ago, Rick Bowness didn't really know any of these players. Majority of the coaching staff didn't know any of these players. Training camp was all about getting to know each other, about teaching, and there was a ton of teaching to do. I think this year, a lot of that now, they don't have to worry about that. Most of these guys, coaches, players, they know each other very well. It's going to be more about tweaking and tinkering. What kind of new systems might the Jets look to implement? At the end of the day, the way they were last year wasn't good enough to get where they want to go. Or what kind of tweaks might we see this year? But I think there will be a sense of calm projected from the coach, and for good reason. A year ago was a pretty hectic time. They just new coaching staff, Blake Wheeler stripped of the captaincy. And it's funny, we talk about calm when we still have no resolution to the Scheifele or Hellebuyck situations. That alone might suggest chaos. But I do think that we're going to hear, and the projection will be one of calm and a real kind of laser focus on starting this season off the right way. And everything else will take care of itself in due time.
Mike, before we go, what do you and the newly expanded Free Press Wrecking crew have getting ready for Thursday and the rest of training camp?
Well, yes. So Kenny and I have our massive training camp preview coming up, and we've got everything from players to watch and storylines and questions and job openings. We give our projected opening night roster predictions. So all that'll be in tomorrow's paper. And then tomorrow, Kenny and I will both be, of course, tag teaming the Shovel Day Off and bonus news conferences. So we'll both be filing pieces out of that. And then, starting Thursday, 2 sessions a day, tons of storylines and angles to cover. Really looking forward to, what should be a very interesting Jets season. Never a dull moment, that's for sure. And we'll be covering it home and away. Kenny and I are splitting up the road trips this year. So he's actually doing the home opener or the road opener, the season opener in Calgary. But we'll have you covered kind of nonstop, day in, day out, home and away.
Wow, I'm going to be there too. I'm going to get to see the historic first game, not of Velarde, not of Iafallo, of Ken Wiebe with the Winnipeg Free Press.
I believe there will be, get there early, because I believe there will be a ceremony prior to puck drop.
I might conduct that ceremony. We'll see. Mike, thanks for doing this, buddy. All the best. We'll see you at the rink.
You bet. Take care.
Good stuff. There's Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press. We're going to get to a little NFL talk, but keep the chat going, everyone. It's a fun time of year. Lots to discuss with everyone in the Winnipeg Sports Talk chat. Hey, big thanks to our friends at Princess Auto. Big things coming for Princess Auto into the next few months. But right now, 24/7, 365, you're going to find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them on Panet Road or Portage Avenue West, and you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com, proud sponsors of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and, of course, Winnipeg Sports Talk. And, it feels like summer right now, well, with the exception of maybe the color of the leaves. But Consolidated Supply still has a lot going on right now as we prepare for winter. Irrigation systems, not to mention artificial turf, both indoor and outdoor, and amazing vehicles, golf carts, and more as the exclusive club car dealer in Manitoba. But Consolidated Supply has some other great options for your property, including hot tubs and amazing outdoor kitchens. And they're also the leaders in small engine parts and repair. So much Consolidated Supply and their great team can do for you. Pop by and see them at their showroom, open to the public, 1395 Niagara Road East, or find out more online at cte.ca. A big shout out to our friends at Royal Sports. Massive tent sale on the weekend. Dallas and a lot of folks in the WST chat were down there getting some amazing deals. Good thing for our friends at Royals that, listen, I know the tent sale has just passed, but there are still amazing deals heading into the upcoming season. Thousands of pieces of Jets merchandise, tons of Bomber gear, all 32 teams in the NFL represented, and of course, the biggest and best hockey selection in town for over 40 years. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Give them a follow on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina. Another great night last night at Boston Pizza from Monday Night Football. A little double dip. We're going to get into that with Andy Mack coming up right away. Huge Jays game tonight against the New York Yankees. Nowhere better to get together with the gang to watch the big game than Boston Pizza. Thursday night, it's going to be Giants at Niners. And, of course, you can pop down, enjoy ice-cold schooners, world-famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and more. And if you're staying home to watch the game, you can always order online at bostonpizza.com. All right, let's welcome in Andy McNamara, who's usually full of energy. This may be a bit of a somber Andy Mack today, after what transpired on Monday Night Football to his beloved Cleveland Browns. Andy, great to have you back on the program. How are you doing today? I'm sure you woke up still hurting from the events of last night.
As the Mad Men GIF meme video says, not great, Bob. Not great. Not great. Not great at all. No, feeling pretty crummy, pretty crappy. Game started with a tipped pick six. Why are you throwing it to Harrison Bryant twice? I don't know. And then, of course, Nick Chubb's leg, that grotesque bend. He's gone for the year. And and then you lose to garbage Kenny Pickett. Huss, he sucks. Straight up. He is average at best. I can find you a Kenny Pickett every year in the draft in the 4th round. Every year. The guy's got nothing special about him. Yet, the Browns beat themselves in typical Browns fashion in Pittsburgh. I'm heading down to Cleveland this Thursday for the Titans game. I was expecting to come in on a road of rose petals. I'm just pissed off.
Hard to believe they have not been 2-0 since 93 when Bill Belichick was the coach. They just showed that one last night. Yep. Listen, we'll get to the game and the landscape of the NFL in a minute. But on a serious note, you mentioned Nick Chubb's injury. That was grotesque. I mean, he is such a horse. I know there'll be people like, oh, I had him on my fantasy team. I'm one of those folks. But man, from a human side, that's a devastating injury. And Andy, it speaks to the conundrum right now that the league, the Players Association have with the running back position, in the danger that these guys put themselves in front of every single time they get the football. And the fact that, in a league that has so much money pouring into it, is not valuing top end running backs like Nick Chubb. Now, he got his contract. He'll be, I would imagine, somewhat taken care of.
Right.
But when we talk about the J.K. Dobbins, Jacobs, sure. There's so many guys. And last night is a perfect reminder why maybe a little more fair compensation package needs to be put together for running backs, or potentially change the way the running back position, frankly, is remunerated.
More guaranteed money, something. Because really, Huss, if you think of it, you're getting into it's been described, you're getting into a car crash every time you slam into that line. And on the other side, linebackers, you are slamming into a wall of mass humanity every time. And so it's a great risk. It's a huge risk. And the other frustrating, Nick Chubb is such, he is as old school as it gets. When you talk about professional, class, straightforward, just the consummate pro, that's Nick Chubb, and that happens to him. And just super unfortunate. So it's tough. I'll tell you this, Jerome Ford is going to be the hottest waiver wire ad on fantasy leagues this week, 19% ownership. So
what's the story on that guy? I wasn't familiar with him at all before we saw him rip off some pretty nice runs last night.
Yeah, so Jerome Ford this is his second year. He returned a few kicks last year. The Browns drafted him with the sense that at some point he would either be a 1B or take over from Nick Chubb. So Stump Mitchell, the Browns running back coach, has talked glowingly about him since he was a rookie. Say this guy he has bell cow written all over him, starting running back written all over him, and we'll build him slowly from there. Had a bit of an ankle injury in camp, so a bit of a slow start, but he picked up pretty well, looked good, ran off some nice runs, but this goes to a case where there are so few true star running backs like Nick Chubb. And I think Jerome Ford's going to be good, but anyone who thinks as well, the Browns are going to go get Jonathan Taylor, Kareem Hunt, they're not, because they view Jerome Ford at the height that they think he can be a starter.
Pittsburgh defense is pretty damn good, though. Man, game wreckers on that. And, I pretty much did give Micah Parsons the DPOY after Sunday's game. I have revoked it. TJ Watt very much in the mix for it as well. Yeah. But that, from a Brown standpoint, I think that's what's got to be really frustrating, is that it was the Pittsburgh defense that won that game for them. And that was a very winnable game for the Cleveland Browns, despite the way they started with the pick six 9 seconds in.
Picture this. The Browns defense gave up 12 points. The Browns offense gave up 14. That's what else do you want? Through 2 games, the Browns defense has given up a total of 15 points to Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. That's phenomenal. Phenomenal. And you have Deshaun Watson, who just looks absolutely frazzled and cracks at any form of pressure. So the excuses are done. Like I said, I'm going to be in Cleveland Sunday. I'm going to boo his ass out of the building. He's not going to go anywhere because his money's all guaranteed. But I'll boo. You put up that effort. What are the excuses? You had 6 games last year. The offense was rebuilt for you. We're 2 games in. Come on. This is the now league. Let's go. Enough of this nonsense. You got to step up. Be the man.
I love the fact that you're 2 games into the season where he missed 11 last year and we're already out on Deshaun.
But Huss, like,
who's
I
their
need to see-
backup? Who's the Cleveland backup?
Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who looked good in preseason. He's a 5th-round rookie, so.
Let me guess. You're just missing your old boy Baker right now, who's 2-0 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Oh, I'm so missing Bake Show. I'm like, Deshaun Watson. I was sending out a text. Deshaun Watson had a ball batted down. I was like, I could have had batted down balls with Baker. I don't need Deshaun throwing batted down balls. Baker's 2-0. He's feeling it. He's a wild man. It'll fall apart, I'm sure, but I'm rooting for him. I hope he does well with Tampa.
Let's talk about winless AFC teams here, Andy. I'm sure you love the sounds of the 0-2 Cincinnati Bengals.
Sure do.
We can all get behind the 0-2 New England Patriots.
Yeah.
We don't really need to talk about the Texans. And then there are the Los Angeles Chargers at 0-2. First team ever to score 50 points and have no turnovers in their first 2 games and be 0-2. But the Chargers just keep on rewriting new ways to lose. And, of course, the Denver Broncos, who lost at home to the Raiders and the now undefeated Washington Commanders. Which team should the panic meter be most hardlined?
Chargers. Like, I think, we all thought the Broncos under Sean Payton. It's like, it makes sense that they would get better, but, am I surprised at 0-2? Maybe mildly. But the Chargers, this was, new OC, this is the year, and they're 0-2. Like, there is a problem here. You have the talent. You have the pieces. What's missing? Is it play calling? Is it head coach? Like, it has to be something in the coaching realm.
Oh, you mean the defensive genius, Brandon Staley? Wow.
How's that guy working? How? Like, the guy keeps botching games. It's bananas. So that's the shocker to me, because really, when you looked at the Chargers, it was all right. Raiders. No, it was like, this will come down to the Chiefs and Chargers. And through 2 weeks, Chargers keep finding ways to lose, and that's what they seem to continually do, get in their own way.
I gotta say, I would be pretty nervous if I was with the Bengals right now, and I know Winnipeg Walter's probably in there. We can get his take on it. I mean, 2 losses in the division, including a home loss to the Ravens, which certainly is tough when we're talking tiebreakers later on, if that is the case. But maybe the biggest concern is I'm not sure Joe Burrow ever really gets healthy this year, Andy. I mean, unless they shut him down for a while, he was nicked up. You could see that calf was still bothering him. And I mean, Joe Burrow, as great of a pocket passer he is, he does have the ability to move around, to run. I mean, if he's not able to do that, that really does take away part of the thing that makes him one of the great QBs in the National Football League.
Yeah, it takes away that little bit of elusiveness. And there's different types of elusive. There's the sprint out run like a Lamar Jackson or Deshaun Watson. And there's that more subtle, right? You can evade, you can escape, you can run if you need to. And also, Huss, now, neither of us are medical physicians here. However, I think we can both agree the calf planting, pushing to throw, kind of important. Never mind the run. And that's something else that's missing. And it's in his head. Even in the first week in the Browns game, he slipped on the wet field a little bit in warm-up. He was looking at it. And you could tell it keeps getting work on. It's not right. And when the Bengals started 0-2 last year, and they recovered and were fine. But that was Joe Burrow coming off an appendectomy. He was gaining weight back and, totally not a football injury. And so now we look at them, like you said, couple division losses. Who's their backup? If people are like, sit Joe Burrow. Well, you got Jake Browning. I'll be honest, Huss, I don't know who the hell that is. I assume he's not very good, okay? I assume it's not going to go too well if you got Jake Browning popping in. So for Joe Burrow, it's that thing of, okay, is sitting for a game or two going to fix the path? Is that going to fix it and you're good to go? Or is it going to be something that's lingering no matter what? And that's really what the Bengals have to balance out, because that's the AFC North favorite right there. And 0-2, okay, you've recovered before. You get further behind than that, that's not looking good.
Well, I got Monday Night Football against the Rams, who've actually looked pretty good so far this season. Can
we talk about the Rams?
Matchup. Wow.
Can we talk?
Well, actually, I don't want to ever talk about the Rams again after Sean McVay kicked that field goal with no time left just to cover the spread and go from 10. Dude, the line was 7.5 or 8 points. They're down 10. Yep. Final play of the game. He rolls out the field goal kicking team, and they lose by 7. I can't remember.
That's super shady.
Any case ever. No, I mean, I guess supporting their own fans, there's a lot of people that probably cover them and probably help them out. But my God, I mean, needless to say, we've been discussing that quite a bit on the Lock Shop for the last couple days.
Boy, like, that's dicey. When you talk to betting and everything needing to be above board, like, who knows the reasoning? I'm sure he has a reason for it. I don't know if he's explained it, but
he probably picked his team to cover.
Yeah, but like, you can't do that, right? Like, that's nuts. That's nuts. But what I wanted to talk about is this offense for the Rams is so bizarre and came out of absolutely nowhere. Like, you talk about fantasy football waiver, the Rams are the fantasy waiver wire darlings. Plus, we got Puka, Tutu, and Kyron. So they're top. What is this? It's like a kid's cartoon. Puka and Tutu are running absolutely wild. They're Ultimate Warrior sprinting to the ring and going crazy. I don't get it.
Speaking of those Rams, what the hell is going on with Cam Akers again?
Yeah,
is this not exactly what happened last year?
Yeah.
Played a couple games, then all of a sudden is scratched. They're looking to trade him. They had no takers to trade him last year. He ended up coming back and actually being pretty good at the end of the season when he somehow got back in. But man, first game, he was 22 carries, 29 yards. I don't know. Maybe that was just all Sean McVay needed to see, and they moved him on. But for Akers owners out there, I'm not sure we're expecting anything anytime soon.
No. And the thing is, I didn't buy into Akers. I put him on my do not draft list personally. And I got Kyron Williams. As soon as I saw that first game, I was like, I got to pick this guy up, because you can't trust what McVay says about Akers. He'll crown him and then he'll demote him in the same game. And really, since that major injury, he has not had the same explosiveness, nowhere close. And you're talking about those yards per carry. That's really what you need to look at. And it's like it was under 2 that one game, under 3 for the year. Like, it's not good. So if you're Akers, I don't know what you get from if you trade him right now, but it looks like they're going to ride with Kyron Williams. The guy's explosive, and you're looking to win ball games. Like, he's not going to be seeing the field much until an injury or something changes.
Andy McNamara joining us. You can give him a follow on Twitter on X, at AndyMC81. Throw it up. Let me ask you about, I know there's tons of people. We've got our own league here for Winnipeg Sports Talk. There's a lot of people that are in a league. Fill us in on Andy's waiver wire picks for week 3 when people are filling out and deciding what they're going to do with their fab dollars.
Yeah, real interesting week. And actually, I'm going to have a full breakdown on the Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara on YouTube and on Twitter, X, whatever, at SickPodBrowns, at AndyMC81, Instagram at AndyMCSports. That's going to be out tonight. Again, YouTube, the Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara. So we're going to break that down fully. But names to keep an eye on. Tight end is always a wasteland, right, Huss? We talk, good Lord, you don't have Hawkinson or Kelsey. What are you doing? Zach Ertz is quietly and sneakily, and not being talked about enough, he's owned in just 11% of Yahoo leagues. And what you have to look at is target share. Most targeted tight end in the NFL through 2 weeks, 10 and 8, 6 catches in each. Guys getting you low double digits, and it's only a little bit till those touchdowns come his way. You're obviously hindered with the Josh Dobbs thing, but he's getting the ball. So that's a big part of it. Like I said, Jerome Ford's going to be the hottest ad. I would say, like, for your fab, look to probably use, don't be afraid, don't use all of it, but like 20 to 25%. Like, I think you got to go heavy. Like, if you're a Nick Chubb owner, what are you doing?
You're gonna listen. If I'm Nick Chubb and I got $100 fab, I'm probably spending 55 or 60 on Ford, to be perfectly honest.
Right.
So you can't afford not to get him.
No, you're right. It's absolute desperation. Kyron Williams, if he's still out there, 2-2 at 12 for the Rams, still just 25% rostered. Puka's getting all the attention, but Tutu's putting up some big numbers, big target share, and a lot of yardage. Another guy that I don't love overall, but I'm thinking, well, if running backs, and let's say you miss out on Ford, Zach Moss of the Colts has 53% ownership and was getting some catches, getting some yards, 107 combined yards and a touchdown.
I slammed him on last week's waiver wire on pretty much everyone. I knew that he was going to be coming in.
There you go.
And listen, he looks good. And I think, we'll find out what the future for Jonathan Taylor is over the next little while. But if he is traded, which I think certainly is likely, heck, maybe the Browns could use a top flight running back like him with Nick Chubb out. I think at that point, Zach Moss becomes the guy, and I think he becomes quite playable, especially if Richardson comes back.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll tell you that people clamoring for Kareem Hunt to come back or Jonathan Taylor, it's not going to happen because of what I said earlier with Jerome Ford. They see Jerome Ford as a high caliber starting running back. So you'll see them sign like they traded before the season Pierre Strong for a backup lineman. You'll see something like that, a trade or a veteran sign, but you will not see a star Jonathan Taylor type trade.
Oh, breaking news. Kareem Hunt has just signed with the Browns.
Get out of here.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
What?
You had that unequivocal take, and I'm like, damn, I was kind of hoping that might happen.
Oh, no. Well, the reason he's not going to is because, look, if you look at Kareem Hunt, his yards per carry went down. The Browns, the running back coach, Stump Mitchell, doesn't pull punches. He's like, we expect more. You're supposed to average high 4s to 5 yards per carry. And he had attitude problems, and it just looks like and no one else has signed him. He's gone for workouts, hasn't signed.
Well, we'll be staying on top of that. And as I say, I do have an unsigned Kareem Hunt ready to go for any NFL team that's willing to give him touches. Andy, fill people in, especially Browns fans. Sick podcast for the Brownies.
Yeah. Well, the show, I try to mix it up. So I do all Browns for the first half and then fantasy football for the second half. So those who aren't Browns fans still have a reason to watch. So Dan Toomey from Dynasty Nerds, a great, fantasy site. Me and him go over our waiver wire pickups, what to do at actually every position, some top pickups at every position for this week. That's going to come out Tuesday night, the Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara on YouTube. So give it a subscribe and click the link on Twitter at SickPodBrowns and at AndyMC81.
And you're heading down to the dog pound? Who are you rolling with?
I'm going with my dad. We go every year, our annual trip.
Right
so
on.
Papa Mac, we're heading down, getting Thursday and coming back Monday, hopefully with a W, because, man, I was hoping to be a lot more happy going down. We'll see. Well, we'll have some good food and beverages on the way to the game anyway.
Absolutely. Andy, great stuff. Have an awesome trip, and we'll talk to you soon on WST.
Thanks, buddy. Talk to you soon.
There it is, at AndyMC81, the one and only Andy McNamara. As I mentioned right off the top of the show, our pal Dallas fired a tweet and was just getting ready to listen to the show and had lunch out at Little Brown Jug today. Oh, my God, what a perfect patio day. If you are downtown, this would be a great day to pop in. Of course, the spot that hosted our sports trivia night last Wednesday. Thanks again to everyone that came. Hazy IPA is up and ready to go right now. Obviously, the generic 1919, all the other great beers available. And huge shaker on Saturday night, the event of the year, their Nuit Blanche party. Hargrave is going to be closed off, and it is going to be a scene if you're looking for a great time. Saturday night, hit up Little Brown Jug downtown with their street party heading into fall. I do want to got to thank our friends at Breezy Bend for their great support all season long. Still some great golf weather, heck. And of course, we'll be getting ready for some more golf reports for the Ryder Cup coming up in a couple weeks. But if you are thinking about looking for a great long-term home for you and your family at one of Winnipeg's top private clubs, check out Breezy Bend and I suggest getting on the waiting list for 2024 right now. Talk to Corey Johnson at the clubhouse, or you can find out more at breezybend.ca. And again, a big cheers to the gang over at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge on an amazing, amazing season. I think they've just got a few more groups, and then it's time to pack it up for another year. But they also booking well into 2024 right now. So if you want to find out more about the Aikens experience and booking dates for 2024, get on down to aikenslake.com. And of course, you can hit Pit Up on X as well at Aikens Lake. All right, let's get Remo back in here Fun show today. Great stuff with Andy. Great stuff with Mike McIntyre. And I got to say that the chat is really popping today, Reem, from what I've seen throughout these interviews.
Of course, you know why? Because we talked about Jets lines, and everyone's weighing in.
Training camp lines.
Everyone's talking about training camp lines. So yeah, we're all fired up. We're also a lot of speculation on this new special jersey that's going to be unveiled on, what day is that? Saturday, 11:45. Billick's got some intel on Twitter. So you want to see what Billick's saying as we get into that? Here he says, the Jets will have a special jersey unveiled at FanFest on Saturday, 11:45. Curious to see if this has something to do with the RCAF Centennial in 2024, given their current jerseys are designed after the RCAF Roundel. Okay. And then he says some rumblings. The new jersey will be accompanied by brown gloves as part of the look. Brown throwback hockey gloves always look good. As for the jersey, I hear it will incorporate a cream color to it. We will see Saturday. So Billick with a couple little nuggets there, Huss.
Yeah, well, put it this way. I think that's some pretty good Big J detective work on putting together the 100th anniversary of the RCAF. That is very smart. And of course, the Winnipeg or the Manitoba Moose, True North, have done a jersey commemorating that in the past. One of the most popular Moose third jerseys that they ever did. So, I guess we will see. We'll count it down to Saturday.
We can speculate on the jersey. That's allowed.
We can speculate on the jerseys. We can speculate on you can speculate on anything. I mean, you could sit there on HF boards all night and just talk about all sorts of things that could be very much speculative. But we'll have some facts coming up on Saturday. And again, we're going to be down at FanFest, folks. I hope to see you down there. Make sure to pop by and say hi to us. I know the IC guys are going to be doing their show as well there from 9 to 11. And who knows, we may actually crank out something live from there. But we'll certainly grab a bunch of content and have that for you on the channel at Winnipeg Sports Talk, which is another reason why you need to make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And I would recommend to everybody, turn your notifications on. So if all of a sudden we're going live on Saturday, you will get a little alert and you can jump in, and it'll be a little weekend chatting for everybody from the event. Let's get to, there is a big game tonight, folks, and we haven't talked a lot of baseball, but it is crunch time right now in the American League, and the Blue Jays, after that huge bounce-back sweep over the Red Sox on the weekend, actually find themselves up a game on both Texas and Seattle. And I found out today, Reem, from Jake, Texas and Seattle are going head-to-head 7 times down the stretch, whereas Toronto has 2 series against the Yankees and 2 series against the Rays. And I believe the Jays' magic number to clinch, according to my pal Jake over at Coolbet, is 8 right now. So tonight, Kikuchi on the hill, a big game for the Blue Jays. And, he's been so good all season long. Did get roughed up a little bit last week against Texas. Man, could they use a big start from Kikuchi to start off this series against the Yankees.
Yeah, every game. This is basically like the pre-playoffs, huh? So, yeah, the Jays need to win as many as they can. Seattle winning yesterday against Oakland, so a lot of games tonight. And your guy Kikuchi, slight favorite, the Blue Jays. Sorry, it's pretty even. My bad. I can't read.
Actually, yeah, I'm looking at slight underdog right now.
Underdog.
Yankees are -111. Jays are -102. And again, I'm just looking at these pitching props for Kikuchi. Over 5.5 strikeouts is -135. He didn't get that in his last game, but he's actually been over the previous 6 games before that. Do not mind that. Pitching outs over under 14.5. Can he finish the 5th inning, I guess, is basically what that question is. And hits allowed over or under 4.5. All those props up right now, but the Jays just around even money at -102. Meanwhile, if we're wondering where the other teams in the race are tonight, the Texas Rangers are home to the Boston Red Sox. Oh, and your Mariners have a date with the Oakland Athletics. Just what you want to see on the schedule when you need wins coming down the stretch for a wild card spot in the American League.
Oh, yeah, and I knew Brian Wu was going to have a big game yesterday. Certainly did, and I didn't jinx Seattle when I wore the Mariners jersey at the Little Brown Jug trivia night last week.
Hey, let me ask you this. We did this on the Lock Shop today, and I'm interested to see. You haven't looked at the CFL lines yet?
I haven't.
Okay, don't pull them up.
Okay.
What do you think the line is, or what would you suggest the line is for BC at Edmonton?
Oh, man. Okay, BC minus 4.5.
Minus 4.5. Okay. I thought BC minus 3.
Okay, so we're close.
It's BC minus 7.5. Now, the Elks have been shut out twice by BC.
Yeah.
But again, that was before Trey Ford. I mean, to me, this is a completely different team that's playing right now.
Edmonton's good now.
I think I'm going to unload on the Elks as 7.5-point home dogs on that against that BC game.
Yeah. I mean, Trey Ford, he's been one of the most exciting players in the league. They've been close. Maybe not the best passer, but I mean, he works his legs and has made the receivers relevant. I mean, Geno Lewis, he thought he was going to be like Kenny Lawler last year, and he's had a couple breakout games here with Trey Ford. It's amazing how different they look with this change at quarterback. And it's you watch them, and you're like, why were they using Taylor Cornelius for so long and getting absolutely nowhere? So good for them. Nice to see them have some success.
He's another guy before him. Like Trey Ford was third string coming out of camp, and for the first half, didn't make any sense. What would you think? What would you guess the line is for Montreal at Calgary?
Oh man, at Calgary minus 3.
That's exactly what I said. It's Montreal minus 2.
Montreal, man, they suck. Cody Fajardo, man, he's a huge disappointment. They're not good. They're road favorites in Calgary.
They're road favorites now.
That doesn't make sense.
So as I say, if you want some little, there's our sharp lines here today. Great value on Edmonton, and I think great value on Calgary. Calgary plus 115 to win it as a home dog. And listen, if you think Edmonton can win, plus 260, I'll take the points on this one. Other lines right now, Riders minus 1.5 in Ottawa, and the Argos 10-point favorites at home against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Argos, though, the favorite for the Grey Cup right now, plus 140 for Toronto. Bombers went down just slightly after the weekend, plus 185. BC plus 365. And then there's everyone else, starting with the Alouettes at 15-1. It's all there at Coolbet. Use the promo code WST if you haven't played there before for a 100% bonus up to $200 when you make your first deposit there. And there's some other great promos there. If you're already a Coolbetter, check out the promotions page for the latest. Reem, let's get to it. One more order of business. 2 days left of live racing, and it's time to make the picks after you banged off the biggest single win of the year with the $150 win on the Triactor box last night.
Yes, $150.70. 149. Thank you. I'm so happy. I didn't watch it live actually, but I did see the number. I was like, whoa. I just go look at my transaction history. Anna Kozana just opposed, double-barreled elite. They'll be in my good books forever.
Always.
So let me pull up the races. Do you have picks for today?
I do. I'm just deciding on my last one here.
You pull them up.
I don't really want to go with Miss Parfait on this one. I need to get another one for my... What about Saturday service? Yikes.
Oh, I think I have Saturdays. Anyways, are you on race 1?
No, I'm not on race 1.
Okay, I'll give my race 1 pick.
Okay.
I'm going with Exacta Box. Club Champ. And number 3, Unbroken Star. Story smart call. Didn't make the cut this time, but Club Champ, Unbroken. Going with a longer shot and a favorite. Try to get that bigger payout.
Beauty. I think maybe I did bet race 1. Oh, I did. Sorry. I just bet on Club Champ to win.
I'm a big Club Champ guy.
Club Champ's been very good to us so far. So yeah, I am in actually on Club Champ for that one tonight.
I'm on my next one's 4, race 4. So I don't know if
Me too.
Okay.
What are you going with?
Another exacta box. I'm going with 2-4. Stay Happy, the favorite with a longer shot. Chicago's Gray.
Interesting. I'm taking Adams Creed to win race number 5. So a couple winners to start off. It's not usually my my style. I do have a triactor box in race 5 though.
Okay.
And I guess this is I guess this is the chalk box. I didn't realize this, but 3, 5, 7. Miss Z, Miss MJ, and That's a Lot of Bling. Always like That's a Lot of Bling.
I don't have this one, but I'm on race 7 and 8. Going for the end with a lot of horses.
All right, perfect. Bang off those picks, and
Okay.
I'll have one more.
7.
I just added a win bet on That's a Lot of Bling, by the way, in race number 5.
Okay. I got 7, 1, 2, 3. Saturday Service, Miss Parfait, and Maybella. So I got the 2 program selections and a bit of a longer shot. Maybella, I've won on before a couple times. That's my horse right there, Maybella. I don't know if you got any. You got one on this one or no?
I like. This is what race?
7.
Race number 7. Oh yeah, I did a 3-7 exactor box.
Where the money went.
Yeah, I couldn't decide on the other. I couldn't decide on the other one to roll with.
Kim's Texas Bling was scratched and kind of opened things up on this one. And then number 8, 3, 4, 8 for me. Big Nick, Magic Tiger, and Mano Dura is mine. That's the chalk. That's the chalk box.
This is exactly what happened last night. We came down to it. We had one different horse, I should say.
Mm-hmm. And I won 150.
I'm fading Magic Tiger. Should I do that? Jeez.
Well, I'm sorry, McCaig, who I've picked so many times. I've got McCaig in it.
I can't not do it. So I'm going Big Nick, Mano Dura, and McCaig. We're leaving the favorite out. Maybe that'll be a big one. Actually, that's what I need for tonight after you hit it last night.
I'm going for the chalk box. Those are all program selections. Worked out for me in these big fields.
2 more nights to get to the track, folks. Tomorrow, the final day, some big stakes races I'm looking at, including that last one. So it should be a great night and absolutely gorgeous weather. Looking at what do we got right now? Current conditions, 28 degrees. Wow. And of course, tomorrow's going to be 25. Then it looks like it sort of gets cloudy and a little rainy heading through the weekend. So make the most of it right now. And yeah, if you got the chance to get out to the track one more time this year, tonight and tomorrow, the final 2 days of live racing.
Yeah, I'm going to have to tune in to Assiniboia Downs YouTube, get those in. As we wrap up, we didn't talk, there's one Jets news item we did not touch on. The Jets 23-24 broadcast schedule announced today, 60 games on TSN 3, and then 22 on Sportsnet regular season. That adds up to 82.
Okay.
I had speculated that they would hose us and put one game
TSN Plus
on TSN Plus. They didn't do that, so I guess thank you. I'm sure that'll be. I don't know when this deal is up, or if they're gonna get it. But I'm sure at some point it's gonna happen. We're gonna get hosed. You're gonna have to buy some streaming package for one game. Not this year.
Let's not proactively complain about something that hasn't actually taken place.
That's true. That's
like we can speculate on the lines, but let's not speculate on how mad we're going to be when something bad happens in the future.
That's fine. We won't speculate on that. So every game's on TSN 3 or Sportsnet, and Dan Robertson with Kevin Sawyer and John Liu back on the broadcast team. and they have a lot of Monday, Wednesday, hockey, or what is it? Monday, Wednesday Sportsnet games, and 11 on Saturdays. Some of them at 2, some of them at 6. I guess some of them would be at 9 as well. Here's the schedule. First game of the year, Wednesday, October 11, 9 p.m. Sportsnet.
I was staring at that thing all night last night because I hooked up at BP for Monday Night Football with my brother and one of my other pals to split up our tickets in 316.
Yeah.
So we're just going through all of those dates. And listen, I mean, you got some weird game times this year. There's an 11:30 a.m. game in Carolina at one point. Obviously, there's a couple 9 p.m. road games. And then a few more afternoon games, like 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock. So, I mean, even the home opener's a 3 o'clock game when things get going. I mean, I guess I've sort of come around. I used to really hate afternoon games, and I found that they were often the most dead, like on the actual ice. Sometimes I think you can get maybe a bit of a younger crowd, some more kids in it that really kind of add to it. But as I said, went through that schedule last night. Very, very much looking forward to getting back at it. But before that, we do have some preseason games coming up next week, Reem. But FanFest, Saturday, the unveiling of this jersey that we've been talking about today, and which should be a great way to kind of really officially kick off training camp and welcoming fans back to the club and the grind.
Yeah, that should be fun. We'll be there over a table set up. I should add, if anyone wanted to get some, like a hoodie or a hat, someone in our YouTube comments was asking yesterday about hoodie. If you do, you can order on our website for local pickup. We'll bring it to FanFest. Come grab it. And if you want to use promo code FanFest, you'll get a bit of a discount as well. I'll throw that in there for the people. Worked for the Gold Eyes. I had a couple pickups there, so we'll have a booth set up there. That's
and I think
fun.
we're actually going to get out there on Friday and get ready for it. But it's going to be a big, big weekend. So join us tomorrow, though, and I guess we'll have one more skate and one more sleep. But tomorrow at noon, before we're on the air, Bones and Chevy are both going to be speaking. So I imagine we will work hard to have that for you on tomorrow's program, along with some reaction from it, as well as Murata, Tesh, and much, much more. Folks, great stuff today. A lot of fun in the chat. You can just feel there's the excitement that the season is right around the corner. And obviously not a lot of Bomber things to talk about with the team on the bye. But shout out to Brady Oliveira, up at 4:30 in the morning today, heading up north for more dog rescues. What a beauty that guy is, and what a season that he is having. Gang, have a great time tonight. Enjoy the Blue Jays game if you watch it. Nervous about this one, but I think I'm going to ride with the visitors, see if my guy Kikuchi can get it done. We'll break it down tomorrow on a Wednesday edition on the eve of the official start of Winnipeg Jets training camp on your home of sports in the PEG WST. Have a great one.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.